veins, I've been driving this train. Years in this lane, there's no stopping this flame. Cause I came to the game and I changed it to play how I like, rearranged it to my own domain. Yeah, I got what it takes, made lots of mistakes, taking shots, skipping breaks, feeling lost, feeling great, popping off, singing straight, never stopped, never changed. All the squad here to play, and I've got something to say, yeah. I work hard each and every day, I get lost in the words I say. I don't push pause, no, I push play. I won't stop till I make a change. I withdraw on the things I make. I turn flaws into flawless traits. I build tall, never capping space. I won't stop till I hear him say,
Hey guys, we're back. We're back. A lot of conversation going on in the green room. So we're getting our countries together and our politics together. But I hope everybody is feeling great on this beautiful Sunday evening. How's everyone in the chat? Tell us where you're from, what the temperature is like where you are right now. Hopefully it's at least a balmy 37 degrees like it is here in Michigan. Sean, what's it like there where you are?
In the DFW, it's 58 degrees.
58 balmy degrees. Well, you got us beat. And welcoming to the set. Welcoming to the set, Tamasha One in a Million. How's it doing? Are you in the Texas area?
I am. I'm about 25 minutes out of the DFW. So we are enjoying that 56 to 60 degree weather as well.
All right, all right. And last but certainly not least, we got JRXTV, Mr. VIP. What's it popping? What's going on over there in the UK?
Hey everyone. Hey Aubrey. The temperature here. I'm gonna say we've had maybe 30 degrees, if you can even say that. It's been quite warm for the time of year. It's definitely warmer than everybody expected. So that's not really a good sign, right?
Okay. Are you saying it's warmer? So typically it's actually
warmer.
even
colder.
It's
closer to 50.
Oh, 50. Okay, I thought you said something else. Okay, so you said 50. Okay. Well, that's good to know. You know, a little trench coat, a little London fog, and everything is good, huh?
Yeah, a little bit. Too much.
Okay, guys. Well, we are back. I don't know if OWN is ever going to get their seasons together because they're saying season 8, they're saying season 9, but I'm going to go with 9 because that's what I've dubbed it as already. So season 9, second time around in Dallas. And this is episode 3, and it's called Finger Licking Good. Oh, my goodness, guys. Was anybody else triggered by this episode, or was it just me? If you're out in the chat, drop in and let me know. Drop a 1 in the chat and let me know if you felt slightly triggered by this episode. There was a little bit of disrespect going around.
What particularly?
Say again?
What particularly triggered you?
What triggered me was especially two people specifically. Lamar triggered me with his disrespectful talk, with his some of his posturing physically, like as if he was trying to rub up against some of the ladies without being very intentional. I'm sorry?
Without consent? There's one part where he went
there
up,
you go. Without
kissed
consent.
her on the side of the face or something, and that was out of the blue.
Yeah, exactly. I don't like that because as a kid growing up in Detroit, when I had to ride the public transportation, had to ride the bus, you learn very early as a girl child that when you're on the bus and like the bus is packed, you will have that perverted man who thinks that he can like casually come by and fill you up from the back. And like I learned very easy, even before I started playing basketball, I learned to use my elbows. And I tell you what, an elbow will get a guy off of you real quick, right? So, yeah, now I was triggered by that. I was triggered by his conversation also. I felt it was disrespectful. But also, Alonzo, who I would look at as just being immature and youthful. But then when he started gaslighting one of the ladies in the show, I was a little triggered by that too, because I've dealt with narcs in my past, narcs being narcissists, right? So that was a little triggering for me. Yeah. Yeah. What about you? I mean, and I feel like, to be fair too, I was a little disappointed in some of the ladies that were being very aggressive and very intense in their questioning of the gentleman. Did
Hmm.
anybody else did anybody else see that, or was it just me?
No, I saw that, of course.
Mhm. Okay.
Um, the the thing is, I definitely wasn't triggered, but I just thought to myself, I've never heard any guy that I know or seen any guy from the show or anywhere say that interrogation is going. I really love the way she interrogated me and she grilled me like previous relationships. That was, I could tell she was feeling me from the way she was grilling me, man. I've never heard it. Right?
You never heard about any man say that
Nah, it
before.
doesn't work. So I'm not sure
No,
why
it
people keep
doesn't.
adopting that strategy. It doesn't work. Yeah. The best way to get to know someone is through conversation. And the
Yes.
conversation will flow when the vibe is right and the correct tone and verbiage is used, right? So
Mhm.
it sounds light-hearted, but still there's an intention behind what you're saying and you're being truthful, right? But you're not going to find that out by putting people on the spot and making them feel uncomfortable because,
No.
unfortunately, what that does is it makes you seem like you're there to just information gather, but there's no real warmth in terms of getting to build a connection with the person. You're basically
Mhm.
doing a job interview,
Yeah.
and if they don't give all the answers you're looking for, then yep, okay, well, don't call me, I'll call you, or instant dismissal. So that approach never works.
No. No, I absolutely agree with you. And I think that for me as a woman, if I'm talking to a gentleman and I'm asking him, a question or two, and he doesn't feel like answering, then I move on to, just making more conversation. Or another way, like we've talked about this in seasons past, JR, you and I, we've talked about how in order to get something, sometimes you have to give something. So as a
Hmm.
woman, it's often okay. Like if I'm asking him about his past relationships, maybe if she had offered up that she had been married in the past and how that ended, or whatever little nuggets she wanted to share, not going into a whole lot of detail, that
Hmm.
might have loosened him up and kind of lubricated him to say, oh, well, she's getting giving me a little bit about her. I will now feel comfortable to share with her about what's going on with me. But
Exactly.
you don't see this kind of exchange going on, and I'm thinking, where do people learn their conversational skills at? Like, what's going
Well,
on here?
she did actually reveal about her being married before, but it wasn't to him in that scenario. So you're right. If she wanted to find out some information about him, a lighter conversation, because that's something they obviously have in common. They've both been married before. So
Yes, what do we have in
if
common?
you're exactly if you're having a conversation about it, then that's fine. But if you're coming across as judgmental or critical, or
Hmm.
you're trying to interrogate,
Yes.
then you're not going to get the responses that you actually want. You're not going to get the responses you're looking for, because I'm telling you for a fact, nobody likes to be grilled and be made uncomfortable um, when they're talking to you, right? Especially if they just met you, because then there's no emotional investment for them to give you the benefit of the doubt. So the moment you start coming off with those type of tones, that type of angle, then
Hmm.
you're going to push people away and they'll put you in the bottom ready for elimination just off of that.
Right, right, exactly. That's my thought too. I'm just thinking, again, just common sense, a little common sense, a little humor, not taking yourself too seriously in the beginning.
Hmm.
Laughter always works. I don't see why, a lot of times we as women like it when men make us laugh. It's okay to make a man laugh too, I think. But just like I said, just different techniques, different strokes for different folks. But I guess this is the way we find out who some of these people are and how they
Hmm.
show up. And sometimes how they show up is not very helpful in their
Quest.
partnering with other people.
Absolutely not.
Yeah,
Detrimental, in fact.
detrimental. Let's see.
One of
Monique
the things
said,
I realized is that the more you see, like when you see some of these castmates start trying to date or get to know these people, you actually are seeing part of the reason why they're not with anyone at the moment.
Mm-hmm. I feel that way too. I feel that way about this show. And I feel that same way about also our other show, Married at First Sight, that we cover earlier today. If you haven't had a chance to see that, go over and check that video out. It's available now. Yeah, I feel like you're absolutely right. We see some of the circumstances of why some of these people are single, even though many of them are so attractive physically. Is some of their strategies that they're using dating that don't seem to be working well for them.
Mhm.
Um, I just wanted to drop this in and talk about this. Dorica says you have to have a little finesse when trying to get certain information from men, not rapid fire style. Exactly. Exactly. I totally agree with you, Dorica. Oftentimes men are going to be a little shyer, or maybe not even, because women can be kind of, I know I'm reserved when you first meet me. I'm reserved about giving information out. And it's something that I feel like I have the empowerment and the good sense to know that if you haven't shared anything personal about yourself, why am I sitting here trying to give you my life story? Why am I doing that? Information is key, and the more you know about somebody, it can sometimes be used to hurt that person, to come back and say, well, oh, this is the reason why that happened to you. There are some people out there that like to do that. So absolutely, finesse is important. I don't know. Uh, Wait a minute, but Wes has a different viewpoint. He says, from his vantage point, over at Stay Tuned Reviews, he says this episode made me feel sorry for the guys.
Mhm.
um, Tamasha, what are your thoughts? Do you feel sorry for the guys on this episode?
You know what? I don't actually feel sorry for the guys. I think that they caught some of those razors. So I think they got cut by some of those claws, but I don't feel
Mm,
sorry for them. I don't feel sorry for them because I feel they did stand their ground in
yeah,
communicating how they felt.
they did.
My history was from episode 8 with a few cast members that I went to college with. And that's how I acquired my footing with them. So after dealing with them in the capacity of that, I've learned to look through this a little differently, but in spite of production, editing, and everything, there's some things that's just the same. And so this season, I feel they made the men more. I feel like they were highlighting masculine energy more than last season. So we're having to adjust to the vocal aspect of these men. Like they're very vocal, very in tune with their emotions. They seem to know what they want. So it's going to be a trigger to some of these strong-minded women that are used to dominating certain conversations, in possibly in their everyday. And so when
Yeah,
you're talking to a man that you're interested in, you can't talk to him like a coworker or like
Mhm.
or someone like a colleague. You have to tap into the femininity that draws that man to see you. And I think
yes,
that's
yes.
really
Talk
where it's
about it.
at.
Talk about it.
Because Lamar was a great example, as far as him being married twice. So it made me think back to going through the military again. I've been through boot camp. When I went through, it was 18. I didn't have nothing in life, fresh out the gate. Well, if you
Mm-hmm.
want to go in now, I would have to go back through boot camp because I've been out over 10 years, near 20. So going back now, it wouldn't be the same. Like, it's not that I wouldn't appreciate it. It's not that it wouldn't be special, but it would not be the same because there's certain parts of it that I'm gonna be like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's get on with it. So I think when he ran into the likes of Mika or some of the other Patrice, or with her, he actually had an easier end. But when he ran into April, a lot of these people that kind of been there and done that, it I think they they caught claws and razors, strong minds. And, that's
Yeah.
just something that's out there right now. It's kind of hard to still keep those principles of, being feminine and pulling the masculine out when he's already done that, so many times before. So I don't feel sorry for them. They're just, you know, they have strong male emotions. They're dealing with strong women. So we're gonna have some strong conversations, and that's what we're getting.
You bring up an excellent point, and I hear you, Tamasha, when you're saying I feel like if I put it in my own phrasing, in my own head words, I'm thinking that you got some men that may have a lot of testosterone that consider themselves alphas, may or may not be alphas, and some women who definitely feel like they are definitely alpha women. What are you gonna say, Sean? What do you think about that concept of alphas? The alphas butting heads. Are they? Is that what we see? Is that why I'm so triggered by all of this?
Uh, I can't speak for you. I don't know why you're triggered, other than what you intimate to us. But I think it's the gist of trying to put over a show, trying to impress one another, um, trying to put your best foot forward, trying to, as Ron would say, dating on steroids, trying to date with steroids. I don't know. I
Yeah,
mean, it's just a whole lot of moving parts within one show, per
that's
se.
true.
The show can't be straight laced, and that nobody will watch it. And so I think it's the mixture of the comedy, the drama, the joy, the sorrow, all of that works together for the show. And so I think that's the gist of it. Not that an alpha personality is button heads with another alpha personality. I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And you're right. You can't speak for my triggeredness, but and I already gave reasons why I felt triggered by certain people in this
Mhm.
episode, what it relates to. Uh, Hey Nancy, how you doing? Welcome in, welcome in. We're gonna get to stay tuned. I see your comment. I'm gonna save that as we kind of get into it. I'm gonna pull that one up, okay? Darica, yeah, it is Darica. I know, right? Darica says, "Hey, it's nice to have another lady in the chat in the on the panel." I know that's right. Tamasha is here.
Hey, girl,
She bringing
I
her
am here.
military. Yeah, she bringing her military experience and everything. Yes, yes, yes. So we're gonna go ahead and get started with the notes here and what really happened, scene by scene, more or less. A few of them I might have dropped because they were I don't know. It was nothing really going on there. But we're going to go ahead and get started, guys. And thank you for being here. Please make sure you hit the like button as you're coming in the room. You know, you're going to be here for a while chillaxing with us. So we'd like for you to support the channel and also go over and support our panelists. You've got JRXTV, who has his own YouTube channel. And you got Sean up at the top. And you've got Tamasha here, who is going to be opening up her channel very soon if she hasn't already. So we open up, guys, at uncle, cousin, nephew Tommy's all inclusive brunch. And as we open up the singles from the first mixer, are left wondering where the rest of the singles. You've got Chaz and Lei Ling are connecting again. And Tommy enters, uncle, nephew, cousin Tommy enters and says, "Hey, look, I know you guys are looking for the other sexy singles. They're on their way. But I just wanted to let you know that one man that was supposed to be here did not show up. So he was not ready to love." Okay, so then you have when the eight sexy singles come in from Fort Worth's finest. Chaz says that the curly haired girl, meaning Alexis, has caught his eye. But apparently, Alexis has also caught Alonzo's eye because Alonzo makes it over to her first. JR, what did you make of Alonzo's conversation with Alexis?
Uh, General, normal for what I'd expect. Um, Clearly, you have a case where the physical has stood out, and
Mm-hmm.
that sparked the interest, and both parties seem relatively interested in each other, so no bad vibes, and that's what I'm looking to see, right? So didn't have any
Yes.
problem with particular interaction at all.
No, I didn't either. Like you said, they seem to be all grown and sexy on that interaction. What about you, Sean? Did you notice that Alonzo made it over to talk to Alexis before Chaz could make it there?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, unless I guess you have to be in the moment, but I guess the crowd is not that large, and so two people can actually see the same person, and so I guess over there, who gets there the firstest with the mostest, as they say, will win the contest. But Alonso won that one out as far as getting over there first. But like Jr. said, I think just normal conversation, just nothing too deep, just surface level things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we find out, thank you for that. We find out from Uncle, Nephew, Cousin Tommy that this is the week that the men will be doing the elimination. And right away, when he says that, I think I see the men's chest begin to puff out even bigger. So, it's interesting dynamic with this show, having watched and covered love ready to love make a move right just a few weeks ago. It's interesting dynamic to see that when Tommy makes the announcement that it's the men's week to choose, it's the women's week to choose, um, either side you've got, it seems like always every season some people on either side that get a little carried away with that power structure. um, so we move forward, and the men and women are mingling. uh April is over by the getting of some food, and she says hello to Lamar, but she offers up maybe a cheek. I don't know what the cheek or what's really going on here. And then she seems to be uncomfortable because Lamar seems to well, what do you say, JR? Does Lamar, is he doing a little bit too much in this scene with April?
He did a lot too much. First of all, doesn't know her well enough to just come and put a peck on her cheek or whatever he tried to do, right? And she definitely made a point to show that she wasn't appreciative of that, but um, she didn't, immediately go crazy and gun him down. But
Mm-mm.
Lamar is, uh, who? Listen, I hope he hasn't unpacked because he's going to be going home soon. He can't. So if I was him, I wouldn't empty everything out the suitcase yet because it's going to be a lot. He's going to spend more time putting his stuff back in the suitcase than he's going to be on the show if he keeps up with that behavior. And the
Yeah.
thing is, it's not the only thing. I'm saying that is something that was a problem, but it's the way he's been interacting, the things he's been saying since we've seen him on the show. Like he seems to
Yes.
be one of the more problematic guys on the show for sure,
Right.
without doubt.
It's something about his personality. Like I said, he was a little triggering in this scene for me because it reminded me of being 12, 11, 13 years old, and you got some pervy guy on a crowded bus that thinks that he's going to be slick enough to catch a feel from you. And I always had to have my elbows ready, or I had to have my mean mug. And you guys know what I mean by mean mug. You give them that
Hmm.
death stare, like if you come within 2 inches of me, it's over with for you, right?
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
this is what I'm talking about when I ask the question, does a woman feel safe? Because, like in the movie The Color Purple, sometimes women children just ain't safe out here in the world. You just aren't. And a lot of people, I don't think that all men recognize that are they asking themselves, are they creating a safe space for us women? And then we as women now coming into our alphaness, we also still have to continue to create safe spaces for men that we care about and that we are in relationship with. I don't think it's a one-way street. I think that we women owe it to men to create a safe space for the men also.
Of
Okay.
course,
So,
it's an exchange, right?
it's an exchange, exactly. It's an exchange of energy, and it's an exchange. JR, you know what is really really important to me? It's an exchange of respect.
Hmm. Of course, yeah,
It's an
definitely.
exchange of respect, and if you can't respect me and I can't respect you, we really have no business being in relationship with one another at all.
Hmm.
um
Exactly.
and so as we move forward, thank you for that. You make a very good therapist, by the way, JR. um And as we
Well,
move forward, Mika is saying, telling us in the confessional that she really, really likes Dominique, from last week, 2 weeks ago, but that she's willing to give the other men a chance. Um, but she's talking to Lamar. Speaking of Lamar, once again, she's talking to Lamar, and they seem to be hitting it off until she says, "Well, I've got some children," and then he asked her, "Does she want more children?" And she says, "Oh no." And then he basically says, "Well, this conversation is over with." What did you think about that, Tamasha? What did you think about that exchange right there between Lamar
And Mika,
and Mika? Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, I lost my
I
place. Yeah.
think that no, you're good. I think that that was signature of him, given his interactions with 5 women already. That's kind of been on that same thread. Um, he was, I like the fact that he knows what he wants, which is what I got out of that. But it was
Hmm.
the way that he went about it. It was like, oh, you don't want no more? Okay, bye. And it's like, hey, okay, well, you don't have to make me feel bad because I capped out of your number or because I don't, he didn't leave no room to even explore that opportunity. It's like if that was that icebreaker, then I guess I dodged a bullet, is what I took from that. And coming from him, it seems like any woman that says something, whether she knows it or not, is going to be a problem. And so he's really in my opinion, a bleeding man. A wounded puppy that's running around. He needs to be sit down for a second, get healed some, so he can stop being so critical of every woman that he runs into. Like that tells me that if I put all of these situations together with every woman that didn't fit his profile, that tells me that was that ex. Whoever she was had these things, and these are
Mm,
those things that's cutting. Yeah, because with her, it's okay. You don't want to have no more kids. No. With April, as soon as she asked him a question about him, he threw up her career. And all of a sudden now she's choking him with degrees. With
mm,
Coisha, it was a immediate cutoff, the same.
yeah.
And with Patricia, the only reason why they're getting along for right now is just because they're over a project. They're doing something fun that doesn't require emotion. But as
Right. We'll
soon as
come.
but
We'll
that's how
come
I
to
feel about
that.
him.
Right. We'll come to that in a second. But very good points. I love the way you tied all of those interactions in.
Yeah, it's a
Uh,
pattern.
in the pattern that he seems to be having. Would you agree with that, Jr.? Was she saying?
I see it slightly differently.
I thought you would.
Now, yeah. Now, the thing is, he he seems like the type to cut you off very quickly if he realizes that what he's looking for and what you are looking for or what you have isn't a match, right? You're not going to waste no time whatsoever, not a single second. Which is why as soon as he heard no kids and you got two
Hmm.
already, he was like, "Yep, okay, nice talking to you. Time to get going." So very abrupt. I'm not sure you can really compromise on that. Like after you said you don't want no more kids, which is a definitive no, and he's looking for someone to have kids with, and that's a definitive yes. What's going to be the meeting in the middle? Okay, well we can have half a child, or we can talk about it, or we can like it's speed dating on steroids, like Ron says, right? So there's no time. You got to get around the room, get to meet these ladies. If one person has, and just like the ladies are doing, um, if you hear something that's not what you're looking for, you're keeping it moving. You're not gonna stay there still entertaining conversation for too much longer because you got other guys to go and meet. So I think what we're seeing from Lamar is him matching energy. So if you come at him with a light-hearted, jovial tone, he'll take the same approach, but then he'll go too far with it and probably lean into something sexual or make some other comment. If you come at him in trying to interrogate him or with your walls up, then he will quickly shut himself down and he'll get into a argumentative situation with you, as we saw as well. So um, I think he is a problem, like I said before. But I also see that because he matches energy, if like it's the difference between doing that if you're in a relationship for a long time and someone, you're constantly being picked at, so you match the energy and you play tit for tat. But this is someone you know in 5 seconds, so you don't need to
Excuse me,
go into
excuse me
Yeah,
just
anything
a
but
deep.
second. Someone, oh, go ahead, Tamasha. Okay, go ahead.
no, I was going to say it's really about his delivery for me. I like the fact that, and a woman likes the fact that a man knows what he wants, assertive and confident about that, all of that. But it's almost like you don't have to be so nasty about it. So for me, what stood out, in spite of me respecting what he was saying, because I didn't think there was nothing wrong with what he was saying, because you're absolutely right. Under the dynamic of the show, let's get to it. You're speed dating in a sense, and you're moving around, and you have options. And of course, they just met the other half. So there's a lot of that. Yeah, great. But you wouldn't want your reputation to be, dang, when he doesn't like you, you sure gonna know that he don't like you. And I was thinking
Correct.
as you were speaking, wouldn't it be funny if it circled around that she actually wouldn't mind another, or another woman wouldn't mind another child, but he was so harsh with the cutoff that was never explored with that person. Like I've seen that happen in life where people kind of diss a person and then come back around in life and they're like, oh, I didn't even know you was interested in that. And it's like you never gave me a chance to. You were so quick. So with him it's more that, like,
Yeah.
she didn't say having two children in a nasty way, so she shouldn't have gotten it
No.
that cut off in a nasty way. Like you said, abrupt,
Yeah.
I guess, would be a better. So it's like I respected that, because that means he knows what he wants, like he does, which is good. But he's so it's almost like trauma reaction. He doesn't realize how sharp his cut is. Like he's
Yes,
ready, like he's
yes.
ready on the inside. He is a ready man. He means everything that he's saying. Like that's what's attractive. He's a man. He is mannish. Like I personally would. I know this is gonna sound wild, but I know women that would not have had a problem with what he did. And truth be told, looking at the language, yes, she did arch a little for him too, and he did exactly what he was supposed to in that invite. And even though she had her reaction, it wasn't it wasn't a force. It wasn't so rough as far as like I understood that language almost like if they were in another setting, it would have been okay. It's just it to me that's just the chemistry between two strong minds. So I already knew right there they're gonna be a strong couple if they got together. But she would have to submit to that, and he would have to dominate like that. Like I know that's not, but I got it. Even though it may be for someone else, but with her, it just seemed to I understood it. But it's just him. I just he has it in him to not be so nasty or abrupt with what he does. And I think
See,
if he pulls back on that, then the ladies would respect his stance, and his reputation won't be so to where it's like, damn, as soon as I said something, he just cut me off, like
yeah,
rude.
yeah, I get it. Like, and that's what I'm saying. We're watching the same thing, and we're picking up two different things, right? You're picking up the tone and the abruptness of his verbiage, right? And I'm picking up the fact that um, if like I've seen already from his interactions that he is problematic, right? He's the type of person that's going to say something or do something that is too much and may offend the person he's talking to. So I definitely get that. But in that instance, I don't think he was particularly wrong because it didn't end on a bad note. She said when they asked about kids, she said she got two already. When he asked her if she's open to having more, she said no. So that's not a maybe. That's not if I meet the right person in the right circumstance. There's no hope. You didn't give that any hope. The answer was no. So he just said, yeah, okay, it's time to keep it moving. So I didn't see anything wrong with that. But like I said, some of his other interactions and behaviors I'm definitely more critical of because I don't necessarily think he's that broken. I think he's just not nice he's not going to fluff you up and give you a cup of tea and fluff your pillows for you while he's talking to you. That's not the vibe he's going to give.
Not
He's
that
going to be
fluffing
very
is
straight
not
to the
really
point,
going
very
on.
direct, very abrupt. Yeah.
He's very direct. Yeah, I agree with you on that, Jr. Um, Differing viewpoints, like you said, we're all gonna have different viewpoints in how we see what stands out to us with these people. But I think and we'll just get Sean in here for good measure. Sean, is basically, do you feel that Lamar's delivery, is it abrupt, or what do you think?
Well, I mean, like Tamasha was saying, I think he gives that persona of being quote unquote mannish. That this is the way I talk, this is the way I am, this is who I am, and I'm not going to,
Hmm.
as the older folks who use the word pussyfoot around the subject.
Ooh.
And I think now attribute that to being whether we attribute that to being scripted into the show or what have you, I don't know. I mean, because I hear a couple of conversations that I seem to be recurring conversations among different people in the show. Like from tone second to children to what have you. So I don't
Yes.
know how much to talk about on the first mixer, the first date, or what have you, when we're just coming to interaction with one another. So maybe this is just who he is. Maybe, I mean, he's from H Town, Houston, what have you. Maybe this is just
Hmm.
who he is.
Oh yeah, we can accept who he is. I just wanted to know if you thought that, was he abrupt? That was just my only question with that. I mean, I'm trying to see if there's a consensus. I
What,
know that
what, what,
JR
what,
has.
in the
Okay.
context, in the
In the
context of
context.
it, he was
Yes.
abrupt, and he was abrupt. He was abrupt in the context. Whether the
Hmm.
prolonged conversation, it might not have been so seen as so abrupt. I don't know. From what we saw, it was seen as abrupt.
It did. It did seem abrupt, and let me just say this: we saw also in other conversations with other women. I forget who was the other woman he chatted with. Was that uh who was he chatting with that also had children? But he's basically letting us know that if the woman isn't interested in having children, then he's not interested in that woman. And like Tamasha said, I
Mhm.
don't have a problem with it. I'm here for it. I'm all there for a man and a woman, grown folks, knowing what it is exactly they want. He should know what he wants by now. He's been married and divorced twice. So if he doesn't know what he wants by now, I don't know who will. You can't create the life
True.
you want if you don't know what life
Yeah.
you want. You don't know if you want to have children. You don't know if you want to be married. You don't know if you want to go to college. You don't know if you want to have a job. I mean, all of the things that we have in life are a product of us manifesting and creating this life that we have, right? So
Hmm.
I don't have a problem with him wanting what he wants. Um,
Yeah.
I want to go back to some comments that were in the chat because I think they kind of relate to this. Weston is having a whole conversation out here, and I got to jump on the bandwagon for a second because he brings up some interesting points. West from Stay Tuned reviews the show shouldn't cast women who aren't open to having children. He says it's a recipe for disaster, but to that I have to ask, but what about the men who have children? And then what should they not cast women who don't want to meet men who already have children? So this is the problem. I think this is the issues that come up when you're waiting and or it's taking your time. You had to build your career for whatever the reason is. I'm not trying to fault anybody for the reason, but for whatever reason it is that you haven't found your plus one, you're now 35, 40, 45, 50, and you think that you're going to meet someone, maybe the love of your life, that doesn't have children already, that hasn't, a woman who hasn't had her tubes tied, a man who hasn't had a vasectomy. These are things that happen as people get older. Sometimes people make choices before they meet you. If you met a person and you waited 40 years before you finally came together for whatever reason, these are the things that happen. People have already married, they've already been divorced. So when you're, to me, over 30, 35 years old, you can expect, much like Sharice on Ready to Love, make a move. You're gonna expect that if you meet a guy that's 50 years old, you better bet he's been married already. You better bet he's already had children. And if he hasn't, like, you're gonna be looking at him side eye. I would be.
Or
You-
you're gonna have to come off your high horse and settle. But the fact of
Yeah,
the matter is
Well,
we do know that not everybody has kids at by that time. So what that does is it just shrinks their dating pool.
it
If
does.
you're getting up to 35, 40,
well,
and you've waited, you haven't got any kids already, you obviously value the fact that you're going to have your first child with somebody, right?
Yes.
If that's what you still want.
Right.
And more than likely, you're going to want that person to experience it the same way. So it's there first with you as well. That's how most people, ideally, from what I hear and
Hmm.
assume, would expect
Yeah.
it. It's slightly different if the lady you're talking to's got two kids, or the guy you're talking to's got two kids prior. Then, like
Hmm.
I've said before, you fall lower down the pecking order. First priority is going to be the kids, then the welfare and well-being of the kids, which is usually with the partner, the former partner that you had them with, and then yourself, and then the new person that comes into your life. So that you've fallen into in lower down the pecking order, you're not going to be the priority anymore.
That's
And
it. That's it. Because I've even met, and that's
not
so
many
funny.
people are accepting or happy with that, right?
The,
Some
the,
people want
the,
to be your quick.
that's funny that you should say that, Jr. Because I've met women, and I know women who are of a very mature age, and they're saying things like, "But they don't want a man to have any kids." And I'm looking at them like, even these are my girlfriends. I'm like, my eyes are starting to cross. Like, are you serious? You're 45, 50 years old. You've got 2, 3 grown kids, but you want to meet a man that doesn't have any kids? Like, what? But if that is your preference, that is absolutely your preference. That's fine. Go ahead, Sean. I know Sean's is itching to get in here. Go ahead. What were you going to say, Sean?
I, I was just going to say, I think the conversation between men and women is this: when you're talking about having children or not having children, I think that is sometimes an opening question, an opening response for some women, whereas on the men, it's more of an answer to a question. Most of us as men, we don't lead out, well, I have two children. Most of us don't lead out with that statement as men, because generally, most of the time, with men, the children either A are by our ex girlfriend or our ex wife, what have you, and they're generally not with us. Whereas most women, you hear say, "Well, we come as a package deal." You don't hear too
Mhm.
many men say that. So I
Very true.
think that's the
And
dynamics
wonder
there.
why that. And Sean, to your point, I wonder why the men who have the children already wonder why they're not leading with that. Wonder why they're not saying that. Are some of them involved with their kids? Like, what's
Even if
really
they
going
are
on?
even if they are
Well,
involved, the woman is usually the custodian, right? The custodial parent.
yeah.
Sometimes.
Woman is generally the custodial parent. Yeah, most of the time. Yeah, it's
Sometimes.
very few times that a
Sometimes.
woman is not. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And
there's probably
generally,
exceptions, but in
I mean,
majority of cases, women get awarded the children. So
yeah,
it's more than likely expected that it is going to be a package deal when you come into her life. You're now going to have to think about providing not only for her but for her kids too. And then if you want kids of your own later down the line, then that's another thing. You're another child, another person that you're going to be
yes,
protecting and providing for. So for some guys, that is an instant turnoff when they can get with
yeah,
someone, even though there's a slimmer chance of meeting that person, but there's still a chance you can get with someone, and there's none of that, none of those overheads already exist. You can meet someone
Okay.
and build it from new. It's a lot quicker
and
and
most that's right. And
hassle
most of
free.
us men operate on a need to know basis. I only tell you what you need to know. That's
You're
it.
talking
I
about in
mean,
terms of giving information out, right,
yeah, in
Sean?
terms
Is
of
that
giving
what you're saying?
information, yeah, yes. Most of us men tend, because we don't tend to talk outwardly, we tend to talk inwardly as men, and so I don't
Inwardly.
volunteer. Yeah, I
Very
don't
true.
volunteer a whole lot of information. So you
Yeah.
only go on a need to know basis. I
Now,
only tell you what you
thank
need
you.
to know.
Thank you, Sean. Now you just
Yes.
hit on part of the reason why the women may seem like they're interrogating these men, because most of us women who have common sense understand that men typically don't volunteer information, and some men, not going to say many, I'm going to say some men lie through omission by not telling the truth. So, like, you've got women on this show that are saying, and I don't know that, I don't think that he was lying in this particular case, but there's a conversation going on later on in the next episode where we'll see some of the women didn't know that Jonathan, when he was speaking of his ex, he never said his ex-wife. I don't know if the women didn't ask clarifying questions, because all the ones that were probing him, it seems like they would have known that his the mother of his child was actually his ex-wife. So
Well,
there's a lot of ways where people slip and slide through these things, and they're not understanding what's really going on. They're not getting an understanding. Go ahead, Jr.
well, I think people need to. They should play that game that they played last week to see who was attentive, because he said the reason
Yes.
why his marriage broke up is because of a communication issue. So he did actually talk about his marriage to one of the ladies at least, and
Right,
he
but that's
said
what I
that
was gonna
it broke down
say. To
because of
one,
communication.
yeah.
The other ladies may not have asked those questions, or that information may not have got to them. But this is the other problem. If you keep harping on about their previous relationships, then you're putting them in a position where they can potentially trip over one of the tripwires that you're setting. Because if they talk about their ex in a way which is either demeaning or it wasn't a pleasant experience, then
Mhm.
that can be used against them. And then the other thing is usually you want to try and move on past your ex so you don't have to keep explaining what happened. So, um,
Uh,
but the other thing is that to counter that, sometimes people's behaviors in relationships can determine how your future relationships are going to go if you haven't changed course or addressed what the problems were that you had, right? So, yeah, but I just think you have to be really careful with going into their exes and all that other stuff. And the same lady that was interrogating Lamar about his situation. She was asked
April.
about her previous marriage, and she just kept it short and sweet. Yes, she was married. Yes, she has kids. That's it. She wasn't asked, okay, so how did it end? And who cheated on who? Or did you spin the block? Or any, we don't need to know that. Just need to know
I
that
I,
what you.
I think the difference is though, Jr. Can you give us this at least, that the problem with that what you're saying is in the situation with Jonathan, he volunteered. Well, no, I'm sorry. The women asked him, was there any chance, because he had, I guess, I don't know if it's a young child or the breakup was only 2 years ago. Is there any
Yes,
chance for him to spin the block again? And he answered that he thought that his ex was still interested. So therefore, the women went there because you're gonna
yeah,
spin the
but that
block
doesn't mean
again.
he's interested though. Like
okay.
they asked him, they said the specific
Okay.
question was, "Do you think that she still has feelings for you, or do you think there's still a chance
Yes.
that she likes you?" Right? That they
Yes.
didn't ask him, does he have feelings for her, or would he spin the block on her? He said no. That's that. She has feelings for. He might, due to conversations they've had, he gets the impression that she still would like to rekindle something, but he has said, but that's not how he feels, right? That's what he indicated. It wasn't how he feels at all. But that was kind of still held against him for the fact that his ex may have that feeling for him. He didn't say he had it. So that's the difference. So again, I
Mm,
think the ladies have to be more attentive to what's actually being said instead of creating narratives on what they think
okay.
might be said.
Now that's fair. Now that is fair. That is fair because we all, most of us, and I know myself. You're right. You sometimes project things onto people that they didn't say, or that you've experienced with a past relationship. You're right. You're absolutely right. So they should not project that onto him
I,
about because she wants
I,
it. Masha, jump in, girl. Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say, look, listen. I don't think the women were projecting. And I do think that in
Mm,
fairness, because I don't think they were. See, it's such a package deal. It's kind of like having three grenades in a box. That's a lot of power. So when you use the power bomb of children, you immediately divert to either the children's father or mother. In
Mhm.
today's culture, it's kind of like we can't carry tradition forward without taking account of where we are. By now in our culture, everyone knows at some point, not that it's automatic to all, but as a part of the growing process with co-parenting, there is that fragile time when that child is young that you
mhm.
may circle back. Now, whether we want to call it spinning the block, whatever, being mature about this, you may return to where you just created this child. That's such a power chord that even in 2024, we still can't seem to solve that mystery because that is how it was created. So it's not, we're in today's culture with a power chord of family, and we're trying to make it work in this dynamic of dating, and we're trying to omit and water down and create this family when it's not made, we can't bend metal. Like
Yes, yes.
it's
Talk
like,
about it.
so it's not that the women are interrogating the men, it's just that it's common. I mean, I was 37, 3 months from 37 years old when I had my first child, and I was 3 months before turning 40 when I had my second child. Both of my children are by the same man. I don't have anything. I thought I was one of those women that was going to skate through. I said, "Oh, I guess I'm," you know what I'm saying? I didn't pursue a career because I didn't want to have children. It just happened to be that because of my economic exposure, because of the path that I chose to pursue, that the men that were available at that time were those men. So it wasn't like what people perceive or think. Oh, women are waiting because of this or this. It is sometimes how the cards are stacked. And when you get into a career that's rewarding, that woman is not necessarily doing things that another woman who isn't employed or may not have her weight is doing. And the same go with men. So I don't think it was. I don't think it was out of place or out of line for any of these women to ask these men these questions, because they were not going to communicate this as directly as they answered. Now, I think that Jonathan is real good with words. He's charming, and it's hard to see gaslighting through charming. He seems like the type that would say something and then play you stupid, like and be like, "I told you I had this appointment at 5, and you're looking like you told me Tuesday. You didn't say Thursday." And he would almost have you believing that he said Thursday when he actually told you Tuesday and wrote it down, because he's so charming. So it's a little different to me when I hear each man talk. To me, I pay attention to how a man owns his situation. I could care less about the immature things. I'm aware of how things go. My thing is, how did you take authority over your situation so I can know how to support you on this new level? If God sent me to you as your second round, how can I help you with what you have been given? And children come from God. I can't cut that off. So if your children have been ordained for me to cover as I support you, you need to help me help you. And you need to give me something to help. If you don't have that house in order, then we don't need to be playing pretend makeup. Let's see if it worked with me. The way I am moved towards you is how you take care and how you deal with that. I don't want to hear you gaslighting me about your ex. Tell me everything, because that female, whether I like it or not, is the one that God decided to bind you to for a reason. And the very thing you may not like about her might be the very thing I'm battling with you. And maybe we both see something, but I just may have the mystery of it all is being honest. So to me, I don't think that the women were overstepping. I don't think the men were overstepping, but I do think the men were not being. I think they're too sensitive. Like as soon as they got asked a question, all of a sudden it's
Instead of Tamasha, if I could just interrupt you for a minute,
yeah.
if 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 you can be, if it's possible, if you could be specific to who you're referring to, like was it Lamar and Jonathan, instead of, if we talk about generalities and we generalize all the men, we generalize all the women, then I think it
with
becomes,
yeah,
okay,
with Lamar, what stood out was the fact that any question as far as anything he felt was a violation, he immediately got real up intense. Even outside the kid thing, just asking about the marriage thing. The flow seemed like it was flowing until that question was asked. And I'm like, dang, my first thought was what bomb got set off in him? And with
well,
Jonathan, it's more wordplay. You almost have to remember the previous conversation to make sure you heard right, because you don't know. Like when you question him, he's going to bring up stuff, and it's a lot of mental energy with him. Like if you don't keep up with what he says and hold him to, like almost have a recorder with him, he might just swing a word around you and have you thinking something totally other, have you thinking wrong when you're actually
okay.
right.
Okay, we
Right.
gotta press
So
forward. Go ahead, real quick, Jr. And we gotta press
yeah.
forward to the next
So
thing.
you just, I mean, it's interesting because like what you said you would do in that specific situation is very much like what Lamar did, which is as soon as he heard enough, as soon as he got to that point where it's like, okay, we're not aligned on this major thing, I'm all right, that's it. I don't want to hear you explain and articulate your way around it. I don't want to hear that. It's a done
You
deal now.
did.
And with Jonathan, he's the opposite. Like, if you ask him a question, he's going to go into an explanation to a degree, and that is now being held against him in a way, because now he's bamboozling you with words. And that's why I said it's better that the ladies are attentive, because you can't just ask a question and then, because of what you have or what you've prejudged him to be, then you're making assessments, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not based on what he's actually answered. Like I
Right.
said, he
His
was forthcoming
response.
when they asked him about, when one of the ladies, I can't remember who it was, but she asked him specifically if he'd been married before. He said yes.
Mm-hmm.
It was a marriage that took place when they were younger. I think he said they were 20 or something
Yes,
like that,
he did.
right? And
Yep.
then they broke up because of communication issues. So if I can watch the show for 5 minutes and see what he said and remember it clearly, right?
Right.
And the ladies have been around him for 10 to 12 hours of filming, right? And they've had the opportunity to ask him and hear his feedback. That's telling me they're not really attentive. That's telling me that they've actually made up their mind about whatever it is he's going to answer. They've already made their mind up. He's going to talk. He's going to try and charm them. He's already quite good looking, so he's the
He
one to
is.
look out for, because he's
And he's
sneaky.
chocolatey.
He'll
Don't forget he's chocolatey.
Exactly, he's chocolatey and all this other stuff. So that's what I'm saying. We're saying that Lamar's the way he is, and that's a problem. We're saying Jonathan's the way he is, and that's a problem. If we keep looking at these people and saying, okay, well, everything's a problem, then
Yeah.
you're gonna come away choosing yourself on the bridge, right? So and I will say as well, the ladies, yes, the ladies are interrogating them. You can have conversations and extract the same information, and they'll give it to you willingly. And it can be more light-hearted. But the moment you're sitting there on some type of invisible high horse or chariot, and you're like, okay, so tell me, what did he do here? Oh, so it must have been you. Or, oh, so that's pretty recent. He's spinning the block. Nobody asked April whether she was still spinning the block on her ex, because, like I said, that wasn't even something that nobody was interested in. We don't immediately go to, oh, you've been married before, so that means if your husband still wants peace, you're going to be available to give it to him. No one even put that out there. They just moved on to the next question because the prejudgment wasn't there, right? Just because the guy's handsome doesn't mean he's a player. Or just because he's
Yeah.
got a kid with someone doesn't mean that they're going
That
to be knocking boots from here to
they're
the
still
next
knocking
18 years.
boots. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that.
That's true. That's true. Because I mean, and to your point, Jr. The question would be in my mind as far as them still knocking boots. Now, I don't know if they are or not. I don't really know him like that. I don't know, but it would be kind of odd, because then why not just stay married to the lady if you enjoy
Because
your hot and heavy
communication, right?
time with her? Well, but you know what? But hey, I've always thought that men are solution driven, right? So if there's a problem, and I think there's going to be a problem in any relationship with any two human beings, because that's kind of how we're wired. We think differently. We're going to disagree. There are going to be problems. So, but if he loves her that much and he loves knocking boots with her, they created this child, as Tamasha pointed out, a gift from God, then why not try counseling? Why not try therapy? Why not try whatever it is that you need to try? Because um, you're not going to find a perfect person out here in the world anyway. I mean, that's
That's
just it.
very
That's
true.
just all. You're not going to
That's
find that
very true.
perfect person. Yeah.
We don't know what measures were exhausted, but
No, we don't.
but ultimately we do know that if communication, which is major, like communication isn't just talking to someone, it's also
Hmm.
listening and understanding as well, right?
It's
So if
all of that. Yeah.
communication is a huge problem in your relationship, and you keep butting heads, you keep arguing, especially if you've got a young child, that's not going to be a healthy environment for the child to grow up in. And sometimes you're just so fixed on your positions that trying to resolve it often leads to more arguments, and no one's willing to
Yeah.
concede. So the best thing to be is apart in some cases, just to bring some peace and bring the strength down in the room,
You
so to
know,
speak.
And
What?
and I can take what you said, JR, and hear what you're saying, and I promise no woman would have a problem with that because I heard ownership, accountability,
Yes,
acknowledgement. I
yes.
heard security. And you know what I heard is that I will be number one. Even though I understood the matrix of what you were talking about, because as a
Mhm.
man, you're looking at it like, well, I'm gonna fall beneath child number whatever. That it, you're we're no, you'll be number one. It's a
Mhm.
matter of respect and order, and that happens within her and her response to you. When
Mhm.
we're probing, in today's world, this is just where maturity meets the boy and the man, the girl and the woman. We have to, like Aubrey was saying earlier, and even as Sean was pointing, everybody said it. We have to acknowledge this is what's going on in our world today. And as you hit a circuit bracket, there are certain things that come along with that age bracket. You may look up and meet a healthy person that don't have none of this stuff going on. You may meet someone that wants to have children and find out they can't. We do not know the mystery cards and all that involved there. You might be dealing with someone you want to pay 20,000 to in vitro. I mean, it's all these different paths to this destination, and sometimes it doesn't happen. So
Mhm.
you want to embrace the substance of what you're working for. And to me, these women, even though they may have seemed forward, I will give them that. But they were really just trying to see where that place was for them. And I think if the men's presentations of their past, which does impact the future, if their presentation was more, as you say, you guys want us to create the safe space and give you the gentle, if they had a gentler approach like you had, as far as I don't hear no bitterness, I don't hear no anger. What I hear is this man put in the work and got his house in order. Now you won't have to worry about me looking at your phone or your text. I won't even have that thought about you. You can go pick up that kid and you can go spend the night if that's what happened. Like my security with you would be so strong because it's with you.
I don't know
Because
about that
you know,
spending the night now.
hey,
You ain't spending no
you
night
want
with
to
no
know
man.
why? But because
Oh
because
hell to the no, no,
listen,
no.
co-parenting. Now I know this is gonna sound crazy as hell, but as a woman, I would literally set up like if like I would it would be permission based. If he's cool with it, not me spending the night over there, but like we would have to bring it over here because he would have to be. But
Don't
as
get me
far
started
as
on that one.
like I would never want to stand in front of a man doing what he has to with his child. Now that would put trust on him, but that would mean that I'm just showing my level of comfort. Like that's where a woman's commitment is at, where we will basically let you do the unbelievable if we trust what you say. And for me, when it comes down to kids, you can't run one over me, but I'm also very
I,
cooperative with you.
I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna have to jump in here, Tamasha. I'm
Yeah,
gonna say this. There's trust, and then there's going too far with that. Okay,
yeah,
there's
that may
trust.
be.
There's trust, and then there's things that we don't do, and that's one
Now
of
I've
them.
never
We're
had
not
that
we're
happen.
not
Never had that
spending the
happen now.
night. We're not, yeah, but I'm just here to add to it. Okay, I trust you, but your butt ain't spending the night over her house at no hotel nearby her house.
Oh no, no.
Oh no, 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 no. That's my thing, and it stays over here with me. Okay, and I trust you, but I don't trust all that what could happen. Okay, let's go with that. But now we're gonna move on to Maya and William. We're still at the brunch, and we got to get move a little faster on this. But we got William and Maya at the brunch. They seem to be connecting. And here we have some people that have something in common. You know, that's kind of my theme for this episode: nothing in common or something in common. Because William feels comfortable enough to divulge that he is adopted, like myself, and then he talks about, I realize this too, that when you have children as an adopted person, that that is a cord to you unlike any cord in the world at that point, because if you don't know your natural biological family, your mother, your father, your biological mother and father, your siblings that you might have, you've had these children now and you're connected to them because they're your flesh and blood, and these are the only people that you know of in the world that are your flesh and blood. So that was very deep for me. That was a poignant moment. I enjoyed his vulnerability in that scene, and I enjoyed that she created and definitely did what I thought she needed to do as a person in that scene. She gave him that safe space, because otherwise he would not have shared that with her if he were not comfortable. He talks
Exactly.
about, I thought it was also very interesting that in this scene, William talks about his biological grandmother, who is the only person that is alive that he knows, wants him to have a girl. and that he's looking to find his rib. And I thought, okay, now you got 3 kids already, dude. Like, you gonna have one more, right? You gonna assume maybe that one more won't be another boy. What were your thoughts on this scene between William and Maya, Sean?
Well, I call him Forrest Whitaker. William
Something.
is interesting person from
He is.
his interaction at the first mixer with this mixer. Now, whether she would go for it, I was just reading somebody else's comment said that Maya might be using him as a backup. I don't know, but
I think a few of the women could be, but
he
go
doesn't.
ahead.
William, even though he gave that vulnerability about being adopted, to me, he gives off a hint of instability, which is the air that I think that they've given him. Because like he wants to open up a gun shop, and then he wants to do this, and nothing is really coming together. Nothing connects per se. So I think he's just throwing darts, hoping to hit the bullseye somewhere. Let it fall where it may. I don't know. Something about it I just can't see per se. The conversation in the moment. I mean, maybe he senses that, hey, she's young. I could tell her this. Maybe she would be drawn to me, and she's gonna need me somehow. That's why I look at it. I don't know. Could be
I
looking at
think
it
that.
wrong.
No, but that's your opinion at this point. We've only seen a little bit so far. Let's
Yeah.
move over to Tasha. Tasha, what were your thoughts? Thank you for that, Sean. Tasha, what were your thoughts about
You're
Maya
welcome.
and William?
Tamasha. You
Tamasha.
know what?
I'm
I
sorry.
think Maya and William was a comfort date. Like, I don't think that she's genuinely attracted to him. I just
Mm,
think she thinks he's a nice guy,
yep.
and he's that comfort guy. Like, I do feel that if someone else, like, she would, like, I feel like she would cheat on him. Like, she would date him for everything on the checklist, but really be with whoever she wanted to be with. So I don't think, it's just to keep her name in the book with him. Like, he's just a nice guy. He ain't did nothing wrong to her, so it's just a comfort date. I don't see it as anything extra. Like, the compliment he gave about her smile, he genuinely meant that, but she
Hmm.
hears that all the time. So she was
Right.
like, "Oh yeah, okay," and just watching her
Mhm.
reaction to that, I was like, "Yeah." And he's so wide open, and he took it. So I'm looking like, yeah, she's gonna run circles around him before he realized, what's going on. So
Yeah, you thought the same thing I thought because I got that vibe too. I got that vibe that she hears that a lot. She's a very beautiful, very attractive woman with a great smile, and she hears that a lot. And who was it? Was it you? You just said, Sean, that William is giving you Forrest Whitaker vibes because I kept looking at him and I kept thinking, who does he remind me of? Oh my god! And it's not. I hate to say it, but it's not in a
The
flattering way.
act. The
It's
act.
not in a flattering way.
no. What was that movie that Forrest Whitaker was in with Robin Givens and them? That's that movie. Hey, what's that movie that Forrest? It's an old classic with
Somebody
Robin
let me
Givens,
know.
and he
I'm trying
dated
to
him.
think. I'm trying to think what that was. I don't know, but
Yeah.
to be honest, and I think Forrest Whitaker, like, so I could get with Forrest Whitaker in real life. I could, if I could, I would get with Forrest Whitaker, and I would love him down, up and down, and top to bottom because
Listen, he delicious.
let me finish it, Tamasha, because I'm a sapiosexual, and if he's
Wow.
nothing, he is smart. But the looks department and some of the things about him, he's awkward. But I think that's all his charm. It's part of his charm. But yeah, like, yeah, the guy was definitely giving me his vibes. Like, no, it's like second best. Like, okay, like you said, like Wes said it, like, you're gonna keep this guy around and he's gonna be like your safety net. That I hate to say. I hate to say that. I hate myself for having to say that, but that is
Yeah.
what he's giving.
That's the coworker. That's that, she got her man at home, and when she goes to work, he makes her feel special. That's the
Right, so
energy.
like a
That's
work
you know.
husband, like a work husband,
Right.
Tamasha.
Yeah, that's
Like,
yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. That's it.
okay, okay, okay. Oh my God, Jr. What are you thinking about this two, Maya and William?
I agree. It definitely seemed like a very warm and cordial date. Still early stages. I think he clearly has stated that he thinks she's very attractive. I agree with you guys and gals saying that she's heard it all before, and most attractive ladies have heard compliments before, all of them. So you're gonna have to come with something different in order to stimulate um, something going forward with her. I do see what Sean says about him being a bit all over the place, wanting to start a gun range, wanting to, he's former military, he wants to do stand up comedy and all these other different things,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I do
Just all
get that
over the
as well.
place.
But for the most part, he seems like a pleasant dude. He doesn't
Yeah.
seem, and he also seems like he's someone who, if he isn't feeling it, then he's not into it. So he's not going to lead them on. Seems pretty uh, easy to get on with so far. And she seems like she's very warm, friendly. We haven't seen any hostile moments from her at all on the few times we have seen her. And I don't even think she comes across as arrogant or egotistical because she knows she gets a lot of attention. She seems
No.
very warm and grounded. So I like their interaction. Obviously, it's early stages. Definitely too early to see if they can build on anything, but at least it was a good date.
You
Mm.
know what? I met him at the party, and I promise he is a different guy in person. He is really funny. He really is someone you can take to. So it's interesting watching him in the show because I'm actually seeing him in a different, like in the long range versus just that party. So it's like if he was the way he was at that party with her, it's almost like she would have seen a different type of guy
Right.
because his confidence is there. He's very, locks in the eye contact. I hate you, Sean, because now you got my mind thinking about him. But he's a very straightforward guy. He is really cool. And I mean, I kicked it off with about 25 minutes straight, like when we first got in there. And so watching the show, it's like they don't do his social interaction justice. And like you said, JR, it is early. So I'm wondering how that may spin. But so far, they got him looking a little dull, like just that ordinary guy compared to how he is,
Yeah.
how he was at that party. He was working the room. Like
He may
everybody.
he may turn into a Phil. Like I remember Alex and I back when we were doing the DC season and Phil was on. Phil kind of like started like this same kind of way, kind of like quiet, kind of introverted. And then he ended up being the one that at the women's lounge, all the women were like, I want Phil. I want Phil. No, I want
Yeah,
Phil. I want Phil. So I
yeah.
mean, there is something to be said about man or woman. There's something to be said about someone who is easygoing, easy to get along with, doesn't roll their eyes and make all these crazy faces all the time, right? And just sits there and listens and accepts each person as they come. There's something to be said about that. That's to me that is a social skill, but we because it's so underrated and understated, we don't pay attention to that, and that's how these people kind of end up getting on the inside and we're looking back saying, well, dang, I thought this guy was Forrest Gump, but now he's the one that everybody wants you know so but we move forward. We see in the next scene Koshia, am I saying her name right? Koshia tells
Yeah.
LaRon that she stuck up. Thank you, JR. That tells LaRon that she stuck up for him in the ladies lounge, and she tells him in the next breath, and I don't even know how to say this, but basically that if she were a single guy like him with no kids, that she would be face down, arse up. And of course, who has to be in hearing distance and hearing range is Lamar. Okay, because Lamar is like, what? Like he's all excited because he stays excited. Oh Lord. And
Mhm.
what did you guys think of that scene? And I'll start with Tamasha. I'll start with you and we'll keep it brief.
Well, you know what? She did. She opened the door for us. For that. There are us women out there that speak like that, and she knew what she was doing when she said it. So it's like there's really nothing, you know what I mean? Like that explains, a few things about how things landed that we know about her so far. Because that's the one with the kids that she says she didn't know about. Her mindset is still there. She still got that little girl in her. So to me that you attract what you put out. So
You are,
any
yeah.
she's fair game is what that told me. Okay, you that girl. Yeah, you got this standard of what of something going too sexual to this, that, but you throwing out these baits. And now when he throws out something, all of a sudden it's a violation of some boundary. But you laid the red carpet. So it's kind of like you can't have your cake and eat it too. Like we have to be able to, own both ways, what we put out there. So, you know.
Okay, okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
Sean, what are your thoughts about this interaction with Koshia and with LaRon?
Well, I'm just gonna keep it brief and this for the sake of time. But as the older folks say, was if you ain't trying to party, then why you got the party dress on?
Ooh, wow. Why you got the party dress on? Okay, okay.
You ain't trying to party.
That
Why you got the party dress on?
uh-oh. Man, you would think Vernisha was in this episode. Okay, all right. Over to
There you
JR.
go.
JR. Thank thank you for that brief keeping that brief. Sean. I mean JR, what were your thoughts about Koisha and LaRon? And
Koshia.
is LaRon really kind of a fantasy for Koisha, a woman like Koshia
Koshia.
that has
Koshia.
Koshia? Is
Mhm.
LaRon a fantasy? I mean, this guy's what, 10 years younger than her, basically.
Yeah.
Has no
Well,
children.
I think that definitely came up, right? Because is that's like their first interaction was when she leaned into him when they were sitting by the pool, right? And she said
Mhm.
she can see, she wanted to see into him or something like that. Like, and he nearly made the
Mhm.
mistake of saying, um, I was like, "Are you leaning in for the kiss?" And she's like, "No, I'm trying to see you," right? So that
Mm-hmm.
happened on the first episode. Now,
That's right.
this time, he seemed. Is this the one where he seemed to be paying more attention to the food?
No,
Or
no,
was
no,
that
no, no. No,
okay?
this
All
is
right.
No, no, no,
the
no.
Okay. So
no. She's
now,
just telling him that she stuck up for him in the ladies' lounge,
oh
and he
yes,
seems
yeah,
to
yeah.
be very
So
interested. Yeah,
again,
that's
like
sorry.
she definitely likes him, but with LeBron, he seems like he's too much of a party dude, and his comment about yeah, okay, I'll turn it off for the right woman. No, he's supposed to turn it off before that. To be
Right.
honest, um,
Exactly.
because if yeah, like if you're doing it for the lady, then when she gets on your nerves, you're gonna be right back out in the club again. So
Exactly.
if you realize that you've reached a point where that life is no longer what you want, and you want a family and you want to settle down, then you need to shut that off and get into a mindset where that's not something you do 3 or 4 days a week like he's doing at the moment. But when she said she stuck up for him, I think that was to gain favor, to say, listen, everybody else wanted you off, but I rooted for you. You know, not in a malicious way though, or in a stuck up way. I think she was genuinely saying, listen, I'm like, she's feeling him,
Yeah.
and she wanted to let that be known. And,
Hmm.
you know, so I didn't see anything wrong with that. But what
No.
I would say is that face down our sup comment, unfortunately, you have that side of personality, yeah, and you make jokes about it, then you get offended when someone makes jokes about it. Then it's kind of confusing as to, you're kind of muddying the waters a little bit. But
Yeah.
we'll discuss that later because she does get
Yeah, we'll come to that. Yeah, and that
completely
is a good point because I
changed.
had to actually go back and catch that she was the one that actually said that because I knew someone said it, but it happened so quickly and it was on to the next scene. I was like, who said that? And that was Koshia that said that. Wow.
Mhm.
But I don't know. Maybe it's I'm already projecting, and I'll go ahead and say, but I feel like her ideation about LaRon is a fantasy, right? Because here's a guy that's 31, and he's clearly not gotten the play all out of him. He wants to hang out in the clubs from Wednesday to Sunday. He has a great job. He's a a high income earner, so that part is taken care of. Check. He's cute, yes. Check. He's young, yes. Cute. Check that off too. But now you get into a situation where does he want to have children? And is she gonna want to have children when she's already got, I think, what did she say, 3 children from her ex-husband? Is that, at 40 something, is that going to be a thing for her? Because otherwise, I think it's a fantasy. Like, what are
I
we
think
doing?
she's shopping. She's shopping. Because see,
Mm,
I apologize earlier because I was thinking about Alonzo or whatever with her, and think because she has she I found her intriguing. She intrigued me on a
okay.
certain level. Because with LaRon, she's all in fantasy, in love with his stuff. But in front of, and I was trying to remember his name, in front of what's his name, Jonathan, she was
Hmm.
intimidated. He asked
Yeah.
her a question and she could not even answer. Like she was so stunned. And it was just a basic question. So
Yeah.
that told me it wasn't the question in itself, it was him. The type of man that he is out of her reach entirely because she's so accustomed to a type of man. And then with Lonzo, when they were sitting there and he had made the comment, this is already starting out bad already. I'm tired of you already. That was, that whole, it's almost like if you put all three, like she's shopping. LeBron has the stuff, Lorenzo has the look, and the other guy, Jonathan's all the way out of her league, but she's attracted to that. Like that's her, what I mean? It's like she has to settle herself down to figure out what she really wants. Like she's shopping. She's throwing those baits out and playing these roles with each guy, but she hasn't even settled in what she wants. Like she folded completely with Jonathan. When I seen that, I said, "Oh yeah, she's still a little girl all the way." Completely,
Okay.
in my opinion.
Thank you. Thank you for that. That's a very good point too. So we move forward. We see who is this? April. Oh, we get to April and Mika are quizzing Jonathan about his ex, and we kind of talked about that. So we're gonna skirt on past it, except for the real quick. Um, when they're quizzing him and they're going back and forth and he's answered a certain number of their questions, one of the things that I noticed that Jonathan does is that he tells the ladies that he has to go to the bathroom. And he's talked about in a later scene, so I'm going to go ahead and drop this in. He talks about how with his ex-wife, he would sweep things under the rug. So it gives me very much unhealed in that aspect of his life, that he's the man that's not going to face crucial conversations readily. He's going to run. He's going to run. He's going to hide. And part of the dilemma when he says that he had communication issues in his marriage is that he's beginning to display maybe he's going to have communication issues with these ladies because when it's something that he doesn't want to talk about, he's always in the bathroom. And if you have any thoughts to add to that or deny or
I
confirm,
think
uh,
I
go ahead, JR.
I think what that said to me was he doesn't like confrontation.
No,
Um,
he doesn't.
so and I'm not sure why anyone would like confrontation constantly, and that is a communication issue. Um, if like one of the things that unfortunately us men are expected to do is sweep things under the rug. If we react to everything that ticks us off, then we're going to walk around volatile, hostile, aggressive all the time because there are many things that can pee us off, right? So we have to sweep things under the rug. We have to choose the battles that we fight more carefully. We can't engage in things that are going to push our buttons all the time because it will bring us out of our character and usually bring out the worst elements that we don't want to come out, right? So it depends on the situation, but most of the time, people guys will choose peace. Like, what's the point in going back and forth and arguing over it? Like, if you have a partner who is particularly prone to always wanting to address things, bring things up, point fingers, critique, judge, all those type of things, then yeah, a lot of the time you're gonna have to sweep it under the rug and not really, because if you match that energy, it's going to lead to confrontation. And confrontations usually never end well when guys tend to match the energy that they're presented with from women. We're seen as sassy, we're seen as childish, we're seen as all these different things when the person that's doing it doesn't realize that they're saying that about their own behavior too. So, yeah, I can
Okay.
see why you would sweep things under the rug. Obviously, there's a time for conversations, but again, it's the way that you communicate. If you can have conversations about things, that's cool. But when you start to finger point, jab, gaslight, provoke, all these different things, then oftentimes the guy will choose the high road because he has to and say, you know what, I'm just going to sweep this under the rug. You probably end up staying in a relationship longer than necessary. And because once you start giving someone an inch, they'll take a yard, and that disrespect continues to happen, and things continue to get pointed out. It gets more hostile. So, yeah, I can definitely see
Exactly.
why from a male perspective.
Very good point. Very good point. Um, we've got April quizzing Lamar. And Lamar is saying to us that in his confessional that no man wants to be muscled and put in a headlock by a woman. The two of them are going back and forth like kids. He tells her that she's dismissed, and she says, "I'm never dismissed." Do we think that there's ego on either side, both sides? What are your thoughts, Sean, with
Ooh,
Lamar and
the dynamic
April?
of that.
Yeah.
I don't know what could have been going on. I mean, it could have stemmed from earlier that day at the mixer when they, when he tried to kiss on the cheek. So it could have been a residual from that. Of course, we know that a lot of the sequencing is shot out of order, so we don't know what was pieced with what have you. So I think what we saw the interaction with them was a combination of things other than just that moment.
Right. Anyone else? JR, do you have any thoughts on the back and forth that went on with Lamar and April and him dismissing her? Was that ego on his side, her side, both sides, or what do you think came into play with them being both of them seeming to be so antagonized by one another?
Just saw it as two strong personalities, two bulls butting heads. I'm not going to say alpha anything or boss chick and boss guy or anything like that. I feel like two strong personalities. He's set in his ways, knows what he wants. She's set in her ways, knows what she wants. And they are not a match, not compatible. So the conversation needed to be short and swift. The longer they stayed around each other, the more they're going to trigger each other and potentially lead to hostilities, which I don't want to see. So, yeah, it had to
No.
get shut down and move on.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't understand, and I'm gonna say this to what you're saying, JR. I want to add this. I couldn't understand as a woman. I really couldn't understand April what and I guess it maybe it's a competitiveness that comes over some people on this show, and it's almost like they're determined to stay till the end to get their point across. When you got to know, I think Sean was saying it earlier, when to hold them and when to fold them. Like if you see this thing is not going well, that's okay. There are other men that could be interested in you, but by you continuing to be antagonistic, assertive, and very intense with each and every man that you meet that doesn't give you what you want him to give you, now these guys are going to go back into the men's lounge and they're going to all start to chatter. And I think that we are all, to some degree, influenced by others around us. And if one person is saying that Aubrey is aggressive, assertive, and intense, then the other men will begin to think, well, yeah, you know what, Aubrey, she is very assertive and intense, and maybe I don't like her. So I couldn't understand what was the point of April beating a dead horse, literally. Like this dude
Because
isn't into you, so why not let it go? Go ahead, JR.
because she doesn't have it in her to have that self-awareness and think ahead that her interactions will go back into the men's lounge, especially when it's their week to eliminate. She was just being herself, and she didn't even give any thought to that clearly, because unfortunately what we're seeing from the cast yet again is that the warmer, friendlier, more soft-spoken ladies are the ones that
Hmm.
are getting most of the votes, most of the attention, and all the rest of it. If you're not coming with that energy, then you're going to be in the firing line to go home earlier, right? So that makes
Right.
sense to outsiders looking in. But I guess when you're actually in that situation and you are that person, you may not have the self awareness to realize that that's what it takes to stay on the show. So yeah, of course, and let's be fair, Lamar. It wasn't Lamar that sent her home. She went when they went back into the men's lounge. There were a few men that have had interactions with her that they decided she was the candidate to go home. Right? It was either her
Right.
or Koshio, I think it was. So
Koshia and wasn't there a third person too that was voted down?
Uh-uh, uh-uh.
Oh, that
Yeah.
was yeah,
and
last
and
week.
that's for the
My bad.
same reason. Both of those ladies have unfortunately shown hostile sides so early in the process. So that's automatically put them down there.
Mm, good point. Good point. Go ahead, Sean. You were going to say something before we move on.
Well, I mean, it's interesting how the seasons kind of quote unquote bleed over into each other because it's kind of like reminds me rather of last season with what's her name, Jessica,
Oh, okay.
and
Yeah.
her personality is similar to type A personality to that of what's her name that just went home. April, was it
Come on,
April? What's that?
April.
Uh,
April.
yeah, April. Yeah, so they kind of like type A personality, what have you. It's just that they
Yeah.
kept Jessica to the end, but April goes out in the second episode, what have you. So it's just interesting when we look at the dynamics there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That is true because you're right. I do see some of the same some similar characteristics. Um I think though for last season with what you just said her name too.
Jessica,
Jessica.
Jessica.
Jessica was
Mhm,
more adept at working the room. So, like for example, in the beginning, she took Chris around and introduced him to the ladies when he had to leave early. If you recall that
mhm.
episode last season, so
Yeah.
she did some more things. Was more proactive, and I think she did try to give a softer side of herself earlier on. But when her and Chris started butting heads, all the facade came off, and we got to see her. We got to see both of them be very assertive and aggressive toward one another. We got to see both of these bulls bat horns against one another. And for me, I don't know about anybody else, but it kind of colors how you look at them in all their other interactions. And also her not really connecting with the guy that she says she was connecting with, who she met on the bridge, right? So,
Hmm.
so we're going to press forward. Koshia and Jonathan are chatting about his work life at the recycling company that he and his family own. And Koshia is asking him, is he very busy with that job? Is he very busy with owning a company? And what does that look like for him? He tells her that that's 6 days out of the week that he's investing into this company. And then to which she's telling him that her love language is quality time. Then he asked her why. And this is where Tamasha, where you're saying that she does not have a response. Tamasha, would you like to briefly jump in and tell us what do you make of her not having a response to that question?
She immediately started to stammer over her words. It almost caught her off guard. It seemed that he asked that question, even though she kind of set it out there to be spoken. Like, you're making a compare contrast to what he does, and you point out that the very thing that he's doing is actually a hint to your love language. So, and she couldn't even articulate to him why that was something that was important to her, or why that was that. And I think he did a great job of discerning that that was possibly a problem, because something in that arena is not fully, clean or clear or resolved. And whatever it was that was behind that question, as far as why that's her important factor, she wasn't ready to answer that. And so that tells me that at some point, if someone, it may be abandonment issues, it may be insecurities, something Somebody's going to run into that at some point, and he just happened to hit it spot on just by the type of career that he has. And so, to me, if you're going to put a demand on something, you need to know why that's there. It's a part of owning that accountability and owning that part of you, you know. And with her and her age, by now, there should be certain things that she should have been prepared to answer. That should have been easy, you
Okay,
know.
very
So,
good. Very good. I appreciate that. Thank you for that. What about
mhm.
you, JR? Do you agree with Tamasha about the situation?
Um, to be honest, I didn't even read it that deep. It just gave me vibes similar to the guy that got voted off for his tattoos, not knowing what they stood for after declaring that every tattoo had meaning.
Oh yeah, yeah. First
Yeah,
episode, right?
she did
The
exactly
Mate.
the same. So yeah, like I didn't read anything into it, but
Yeah.
then
Okay.
she was just stumped by the question, and by her refusing to answer, how meaningful is it then if you have no answer to it, or you can't make an explanation to justify that position?
Very good point. Very good point. We got a lot of conversation going on this season. I don't know if somebody tapped into our conversation we had last season and us talking about feet and toes and toe sucking, because it's awfully suspicious that some of the things we talk about on our chat, which of course is public, that these guys come back season after season and now they've taken stuff out of these chats and now they put them into the episode, because I ain't nobody talked about no toe sucking, and all of a sudden this season we're gonna be big on the toe sucking. That's interesting. But Jonathan has divulged that that is a thing for him. That's a big deal. He does enjoy the toe sucking. He's into that, and that he's into doing just about anything, which I said, "Ooh, we okay, that's interesting." Got a lot of sexual conversation. A lot of sexual. Men are talking about the toe sucking. The women are talking about the toe sucking. Sean, what do you make of all this toe sucking going on and all this? Just very more to the point. What do you make of all this very sexual conversation? Is it working for these people, or is it working against them?
I don't know if it's working for them or against them. I think it's setting it up for say, look, if we do get together, this is what I expect. This is what I want you to do. So I remember I already told you what I like. You know, this is what I like to do. This is how I like to get down. So I think that's setting it up for futuristic. Not at the moment. Well, I mean, it could be at the moment too. I don't know, but probably futuristic expectations, just in case we do get together. So I won't have to tell you
Hmm.
again. But it
Right.
is a lot of
Well,
talk. It is a lot of talk about it. I mean, because I go on the other platform. You know, some of the cast members, present and past members, come in that room, and they talk a whole lot of stuff. I was like, what in the world? Jesus Christ! I thought y'all had NDAs, you know. But it's interesting.
you know, yeah, that is interesting. Uh, so we get to the men's lounge. As we get to the men's lounge, and Uncle, Cousin, Nephew Tommy
Uncle nephew
uh,
time, tell the time.
tells the group of men that whatever is said in the lounge stays in the lounge. Do any of us agree or believe that to be true at this point, several seasons into Ready to Love? Does anybody really think that actually happens?
I hope it is true, and I hope it stays that way. But as we spoke about earlier, Koshia said to Luron how she defended him in the lounge or whatever, right?
Right.
So
Exactly.
yeah, so if they don't go and squill, then it should stay confidential, because it's unfair if people have had an experience with you, and then you've stated your position expecting it to stay in the lounge, then when you come out, just like we saw in the previous season, if it gets out to one of the ladies that you put her down there, some ladies have a problem with hearing that. They're not expected to be down there, so they're going to line you up and interrogate you, just like Jessica and what's her name, the one that ended up with the personal trainer dude. Um, I can't remember her name.
Oh,
Janelle, Janelle
Janelle,
and
yeah.
Jessica. Yeah,
How
like
could we
they sat
forget
down and
Janelle?
they
Right.
Janelle and
interrogated
Quentin.
those guys,
Yeah, Quentin.
saying, "Oh, so who put us down there?" Or like that type of energy. So
Right.
yeah,
Right.
I say preserve the confidentiality. The votes shouldn't get out. After you watch after the season finished taping and you watch it back, then you can see what people said in the lounge and hopefully go to the reunion and you can have more of an idea of how you were seeing what was happening that you didn't know about. But to do it while filming is extremely messy. So I'm not a fan of that because it causes dissension. It stops couples getting together. So I don't like that. I don't think it
Right.
needs.
We got two more dates that I want to just hit on before we and I'm sorry I bumped ahead, but I'm gonna go back just for a second if it's okay with you guys. Um we've got April and Jonathan are on a one-on-one date. They meet, they look like they're about to have a really nice time. He helps her with her chair. He's very chivalrous. But then April proceeds to question him once again. She says, "Now let me go back to what we were talking about at the brunch. Let's talk about your ex." And she does divulge to him before that. She does divulge to him that her ex-husband, they're no longer together because he lacked self-control, and plus she was insecure about some issues. So she did give that much. But when she starts to question him about his ex-wife, um, he says, "This has been fun." And she says, "Wait, but there's so much more." But basically, I guess he ran out of bathroom passes. So now he's basically wrapping it up with, "This has been fun." What were your thoughts about this, Sean? This date?
Well, I think Sleeping Dog should have just been put to rest. I mean, no need to come up with a conversation anymore. Number, when they first had it, it was a 2-on-1, and now it's a 1-on-1. And
Yep.
we did not come out on this date to talk about my ex-wife. I'm like, why? Why are you so infatuated about who she was in my life? Why are you so infatuated about her place in my life? I'm here with you. You here with me. Then let's just focus on each other. That's my thought.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree. I agree. Tamasha, you want to add to the Jonathan and April date situation?
Oh yeah, you know what? I feel like in that instance, especially after seeing everything, now we're establishing a pattern of how she talks. I know that last season we went through that a little bit early on, I think with Tequila and with another, where they were perceived to be interviewing. It just wasn't highlighted so much this season, but with her, it's like the more she interacts, you can see where she's coming from, but you
Hmm.
start to also notice her communication style is that's just her way of talking.
Yeah.
And for him to and keeping in mind the other ladies, they all, especially Koshia coming after that or whatnot, that's another strong mouth. So I could see where they'll be tapped out by the time they get to her. And she may be genuinely trying to inquire, but her delivery, comes off, and his personality is a little bit easier to see it compared with Lamar. So you could, you kind of could see it clearly where it's like, okay, that's just her style of communication, but it's not compatible to the average guy. They're turned off by it. Um, it was drowned out when she was with Mika, because both of them were kind of chopping, but Mika more led it. But, you know, it makes sense on a few levels why she didn't have any connections and where things landed.
Yeah, it does when you put it that way. Very good. Thank you, Tamasha. JR, what about your thoughts about this one-on-one date with Jonathan and April?
Again,
What are your thoughts?
the
Mhm.
more the more you see her on the camera, the more you realize this is her. This is how she's going about dating. She obviously doesn't know how to hold conversations. She only
Mm,
knows how to sit down, ask targeted questions, expect specific responses, and she doesn't care how comfortable or uncomfortable you are. She doesn't care about the type, if there's any animosity or reasons why you wouldn't want to go into the previous relationship. She wants to know. She feels she needs to know, so she's gonna keep asking. And unfortunately, that's the recipe to pack your bags and go home, because a lot of the guys want light-hearted, warmer interactions with the ladies. So, you already did a 2-on-1 attack, right? You outnumbered him, interrogating him.
mhm.
Okay, cool. You had a second opportunity to have a date with him, and you wanted to continue the same energy that you had from the previous one, where he was clearly uncomfortable talking about it. So, yeah, unfortunately, when he again tried to make excuses and shut it down, you know, she needs to
Mhm.
realize that this is the type of response you're going to get from some guys who are just not going to entertain spending the whole date talking about their ex. Because, like I said, it's a tripwire. You say something that may rub her the wrong way or trigger her about your ex, then again, you're now putting more emphasis on the relationship you previously had 2 years ago. If we're in the
Mm,
present now, why are we not talking about what's happening now and where we can go forward? Because when she answered the questions about her previous marriage, she
mhm.
also volunteered that she has insecurities. So then
Yes.
I can definitely imagine Jonathan saying, okay, the reason why she keeps on asking me about my previous relationship is because she has insecurities. You're not going to
Mm,
bring those insecurities onto me and be piling onto me and be interrogating me every day because you're insecure. That's not going to be the type of relationship that's going to attract guys from this show. So
mm.
again, she gave that information voluntarily, and
She did.
unfortunately, that's cue for the guys to say, "Yep, you know what? I'm going back to the men's lounge, and I'm going to tell them that when I spoke to her, she said she was insecure. At least she admitted it. But guys, run.
That's funny. You said
Accountability.
you're mirroring the chat. Someone in the chat, I think that was Miss Wilson, said, "Run, run, Jonathan, run."
Mm.
Oh my
Sprint,
goodness. Sprint. Get away from her.
mm.
Get away from her.
Forest
Yeah,
Green,
because
sprint.
you're you you're right because now that she's admitted her having her own insecurities, and who among us doesn't have some type of insecurity about something?
Hmm.
But now that she has admitted it, it kind of does kind of create, you kind of understand, well, like, wow, but are you going to use that insecurity against this new man? You're on this date. I would have thought at this point she would have been focusing in on him, telling her more about herself, getting to know him. And if she has these questions still, don't they have each other's telephone numbers by now? Is this something we can talk about off camera on the phone?
She. This is the thing. She's not interested in him. She's interested in his previous relationship and how he handled
Oh,
that.
okay.
She's not interested in him. Otherwise, that would have been the target of conversation both times that they interacted. It's all about
Mm.
his past or previous relationship, how that ended, what's left lingering there, you know,
Yeah,
what
like she
actually
can't move on. Yeah, she can't move
exactly.
on until she hears it. Until she, that's why she jumped in and said, "Let's go back to." Like she hung it
Ah,
up.
okay.
Like she's like one of those, women that are broken in that area. So that means he would have to spend all his life reassuring her of a place that he gave her already, and he would be exhausted. It's like the extreme of that perfection complex on Married at First Sight. Like he would go crazy trying to show her, "You're important to me." Like it takes too much. It's too much
Yeah.
that she'll be requiring of that man. And no
Hmm.
man, no matter even his personality, it would just be a time. Like she's calling for a certain type of man. The way she's acting, her brain tells her, or the way that she's being presented, let me be fair, is the way, this type of woman is calling for a man that likes that kind of woman with a mouth. And there's typical characteristics that follow that kind of man that likes that kind of woman. It's like, it's attractive now, but when you keep talking, he's gonna want to control that. And so she's got to come off of that big time with that infatuation, because it's gonna create a situation where the men that she does attract are all going to have a similar trait of being very forceful and losing their control with her.
Mm. Wow, those are all excellent points. Our chat has got a lot to say about it too. Uh, Wes says Jonathan sees danger and he's getting the heck out of Dodge. That's why he said, "Yeah, this has been fun." I said, "Well, wow, at least he did get a new line instead of always saying that he has to go to the bathroom." He said, "This has been fun." He like, let's wrap this stuff up. Jonathan would surely survive a horror movie. Yeah, no, he would not be the black person that would be left behind. You're right about that. While KDM says that she believes that April's questions were valid, but it was her tone and saying that he is fun to block with his ex who he has a child with, an ex who still wants him. One he allows being called a baby mama. I didn't understand that part either. I don't understand how a man could be married to a woman and take her as his bride and as his wife. Why he didn't clarify that with the ladies when they kept saying baby mama. I think that that term that we use is so loosely. I think that maybe the women almost assumed that she was a baby mama and not an ex-wife. So I don't know why we make that jump to that conclusion and project like that, but apparently they did, and he didn't clarify it. Sean, you even
Right.
said,
But is there a difference though? It's still
yeah,
an
there
X.
is. It's an X, but in our culture over here in the States, the difference is that a baby mama, it'd be like saying comparing the CEO of a company or even the ex CEO to someone with a much lesser title. Yeah, there is a difference actually. Whether people
Okay.
recognize it or whether they care to address it, yeah, there is a big difference because
Right.
he chose her at one point in time in his life. He chose that woman and loved her enough to marry her versus the
Right.
men and women that have children outside of the bonds of marriage. Yeah, there is a difference. Yes,
Right.
I
And
think
this
there
is the
is.
double standard because, like I said, April was married as well. She ain't a baby mama. She was married with 2 boys or whatever she said, right? So
April, or you
again,
mean April, or you mean or do you mean, no, you mean Koshia, because April doesn't have
oh,
any, or at least
sorry.
we
Both of
Oh,
them.
yeah, they do.
Koshia.
I think I think
No,
Koshia
Mika
was
had
married.
2 kids. Yeah, Mika had 2 kids.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, like
Yeah,
everybody
April
had
Oh,
April
kids.
it's
was married, but she
so,
doesn't have any children.
Okay,
yeah,
so
April
no,
was
April
married, but
does
she doesn't have any children.
right. April doesn't. It's Koshia, right? Koshia that has the two
okay.
boys from her
Right.
ex-husband. Yeah.
All right. So just focus on April then. April
Okay.
was married before though, right? She had an ex-husband.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So the line of
Yes.
questioning wasn't okay, so are you gonna spin the block? It wasn't in fact, the light question she was asked, she answered, and there was no problem. It was moved on from there. So that's the point I'm trying to make. If someone's
That.
insecure, just
Mhm.
like Tamasha said, if someone's already insecure, then they're gonna keep beating a dead horse no matter what the status of your previous relationship was. They are always
Ah,
going to keep asking you, always trying to compare, always trying to see if you have a type, always trying to see if you handle that relationship the same way you're handling
Bingo.
her.
Bingo.
Like
Yes.
it's gonna
yeah,
be
I get
too
it
much
now.
of that, too much work. Yeah, like the guy has to move on because it was 2 years ago. He can't keep thinking about his ex if he's trying to move on. So that was
Right,
2 years
right.
ago.
That's true.
Now he should be in the space to try and meet someone and try and build something new. So to keep bringing him back to what it was like during that time over 2 years ago or whatever,
Okay.
like you're defeating the whole purpose of coming on this show. Like the show is you meet people where they are now, wherever their
Yeah.
failed relationship was, whether there's kids, whether there's an ex boyfriend, girlfriend, or ex marriage or whatever. Like
Yes.
that's in the past. Now You're a 40 something singleton out in the dating market again. It's difficult. You've been given the opportunity to come on a show where people have been pre-selected. So now it should be okay. Do you like this person's vibe, attitude? They might have career um, goals and diplomas and degrees and the long shopping list that someone like April has. And, now you've
Right.
established yourself. You've had previous relationship experience. Now you're looking for something new and hopefully long lasting. But if you keep dragging someone back to where they were 2 years ago and what it was like and how did it break up and all this other stuff, all you're doing is turning that person off of you. You're making them relive what they went through back then. They're going to keep it moving. There's no time for that. There's none.
That's fair.
Like,
That's
especially
fair.
when the ladies are up for elimination, you want to be as sweet, nice, warm, and memorable for the right reasons as
Hmm.
possible, so that when the men go back into the lounge, they can say, "Oh yeah, she's a keeper because she was cool." And if they go back there and they say, "Oh nah, man, she just spent the whole time talking about my ex," and she admitted she was insecure, and she's very stern in her line of questioning, I just felt like I was being interrogated. There's no chance here. Like if those guys are saying those points after interacting, not just Lamar and not just Jonathan either, it was more than that, right? So
Hmm.
that's why she found herself going home, because she does not realize that that's not what gets the success that she's looking for, the successful outcome. Doesn't work.
I have I have to
Even if
agree
the
with
men
you.
were to interrogate the women like that, the man who interrogates a woman like that knows he should be packing his bags the next week, because it's going to put her in an
Exactly.
awkward position.
Either way, because like Lamar, like you said, Lamar should already have his bags packed too. Because I got a feeling about him when we get to the women's choice next week. Um, we had a comment to what you're saying, Jr. And everybody's going to have the differing and varying opinions about it. Uh, it was said that Jonathan did ask about April's past relationship too. That's how she segued into his past, and that this person doesn't think that April asking is anything to do with her insecurity because she was okay with clarifying her past. So different people are going to view it differently, but I
Yeah,
think
I actually
I
addressed
have
that
to
point
agree with
already, though. I,
right.
I,
No,
I
yeah,
already
not
addressed that, because the fact
right. Go ahead.
is that yes, she had the 2-on-1 with him first, where she
Hmm.
talked about his previous relationship. When they got 1-on-1, yes, he asked her, but that was it. After that, he didn't want to know anything else. Whereas she wanted to keep rehashing what she'd already been talking about. So she's bringing it up twice, as opposed to him asking her one quick. He asked her one time about her previous relationship. She's now gone on 2 dates with him and has at multiple times tried to get more and more information out of it. That's the difference. So
And
You
that's
know,
what
yeah,
makes
you're right.
it. That's
Some
what
people
makes
will
it the
see
whole.
go ahead.
mm, the insecure thing.
Okay.
Go ahead, Tamasha.
Oh, I was listening to you. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was saying that's what makes it come across insecure, is because you can't let go, even though you've
Right.
had the question answered, because it wasn't to your liking. You're going to keep digging and keep fishing, right? So you're not focusing on the person in front of you, how you connect with them, and going forward, what's it going to look like? You're rehashing the past. So my point is, it wasn't just once she did it. If it was once, it was valid. He answered the question the first time. But now you want to go back to what we spoke about on the previous date, where he already felt uncomfortable and left that date early, right? Politely made his excuses and left. Now
Right.
he's done it to you the second time when you've got him 1-on-1, because that's not the type of interaction he wants to have with the lady he thinks he's going to match with on the show. Simple.
Tamasha, thank you for that, Jr. Tamasha, you were gonna say? Go ahead.
Oh, he said exactly what I was gonna say. Because I was like, that's exactly what we were talking about earlier when we said it takes too much. It's like you can't enjoy the moment, couldn't connect, couldn't establish. Like the first time, okay, now I got you again. I'm not even thinking about her. I'm all on you. And if you want to bring it up, cool, but I'm not going to be the one to ask. And she just couldn't get into the moment. She lost that connection, and that was it. So it's like that was as he was speaking, it was like bingo. Where I was like, that's what we're talking about. Like, there's a time and space where it will come up, but it will come up naturally, and it will come
Right.
up when you're flowing. You don't have to force it. That first interaction or whatever, maybe second, depending on how they got it set up. Okay, but if you keep staying on that, that's no different than if we hear a man continue to refer back to something, we would say the same. We'll be like, oh, he won't leave it alone. But if it's
Right.
too soon, especially before it's time. So with her, like I said, I see her genuine heart. Her heart is wide open. She wants to know where she stands. I get it. But she will never get past a certain type of man if she doesn't fall back off of that. She can't wear her insecurities on her shoulder. That's not a good, like when a man squirms and gets uncomfortable in her mind, she's like, oh, he doesn't want to accept a strong woman like me. He can't accept challenge. Oh, he's intimidated by me. No, he repelled him. You shut him
Yeah.
down.
I think, yeah,
So
I think she's getting to your point, Tamasha. I think that April is actually, you're right. She's getting the same response from different men, and I think for different reasons. I think with a man like Lamar, I think actually, in my opinion, watching him, his behavioral, body language, and everything else, and how he is with other women, I think he is genuinely intimidated by women with a certain level of education, with a certain level of professionalism, with a high income earner. I think that that is a woman. I think that is his problem. That is his issue. But with a man like Jonathan, you're right. He also doesn't like a lot of conflict. I think that women sometimes, we are always kind of, some of us sometimes get stuck in trying to get closure, a sense of closure. And like you pointed out, though, Tamasha, I think the beauty of life is if you live long enough and you're in relationship with this person, it will come out organically. And one day you'll be talking, or, and it'll come up and he'll say, well, this is what happened. But even though she maybe still likes me, I have determined that she's not for me. That's the reason why I'm on this show. I'm moving on with my life. But if you can't accept it, then like you said, and like to JR's point, nothing is ever going to make an insecure person feel secure, because that's an inside job. That's the work that she has to do, or any one of us has to do, right? So, but
Mm-hmm.
I want to move forward to, thank you. I want to move forward to the Patrice and Luron, which was kind of a humorous date. It was a very lighthearted date. They met out, and they had, he had catfish piled high on his plate, and she had the turkey neck bones. And so he said that's something that his mom is very good at making, soul food, and she makes the neck bones and all of this and all of that. Meanwhile, he was chowing down, and you would have thought he was in bed with a woman, because he was oh, oh, this is so good. Oh, so good, so good. Okay. All right, before they throw me off of YouTube altogether. So he
Okay.
was having quite a good time, and to the point where he even had the catfish all up in his beard and didn't notice it. And I don't guess she decided to tell him, but somebody should have told him, get that catfish out your beard, dude, and out the corner of your mouth, because yeah. So what did you make of this date, Sean? What did you make of the date with Patrice and Luron and the catfish?
I don't know. I think it was just space filler. I mean, I don't know why those two were out on a date. I guess it was just to fill each
Okay.
other out, to try to maybe see if there's a connection between those two. I guess
And did you, okay, and so
it was
with
just
that
something to fill
question being,
the hour long airtime.
okay, now with that being said, did you see a connection between Patrice and Luron, or did we find out that they really weren't a connection?
There was no connection there. No connection. As Miss
Nothing in
Wilson says, an
common.
awkward date.
Awkward
Nothing in
date,
common.
nothing in common. Yeah. All right. Thank you for that. Tamasha, briefly, what did you think? Was there a connection?
I think there was a connection in fantasy land. She could see, they see each. You know what? I was LaRon at one point, 31, no kids, money. You live a certain life like that. So he's doing what he's, doing and doing it well with his food and all that. And she sees that place. She's been there because she's drawn to it. She's to me as she's with him, she's trying to find where her foot will be the most secure. Like he has everything that Jonathan has as far as money, not comparing their salaries, but just as far as him having stuff. And then he's mutable enough, like Lonzo. So it's like, it's a mix for her. It's a fantasy connection. If he wanted to cougar up, have that maternal woman that's gonna be all, you know, hand, elbows down, booty up, and play that role. He got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's the
And she
but
found.
longevity, no, they're not gonna
Mhm.
have a relationship, no. But they have
Right.
a good little fling. They'll definitely be an experience for each other. I'll say that.
Right. She found him attractive because she talked about that. She loved his little baby face, as do I. It's a fantasy though. And one that I think she can clearly see and has accepted, unlike her counterpart Koshia, who actually thinks that she could actually make a husband out of Luron. So, but hey, we shall see. But anyway, we get to the lounge. The men have decided who has to be let go. You've got on the date, you've got Lamar being paired with April, and you've got Alonzo being paired with Koshia. How do we think the men did with letting these women know if they were or were not ready to love? And I'll start with Tamasha.
I think they did good, in their most typical fashion. They was themselves. I found it interesting they had who they had eliminating who. But I feel like it was a good little match. This was a good little boxing match. The men threw some punches, and I think they said what they needed to say through the elimination. And I'll be curious next week to see how that's going to be reciprocated with the women. Like I'm trying to see if they're going to be petty and kind of retaliate some things back next week out of this week.
Okay. What did you, one last question, specifically, what did you think about Alonzo and his playing black and white and all the questions that were easy? And then he gets to the choke or spanked question. Um, I mean, he's saying it's not sexual, it's not about hot and
I don't
heavy
know.
time, but
I
what do you
think
think
that
it was related to?
that is common sense. I feel like if we're grown, we're grown. We have that conversation. Just own it. I don't think it should be repulsive or treated like it was gross. I just think that the fact that he tried to play it because she didn't want to go into that was more childish. It kind of spoke to me as far as where his line's at, where I'm like, okay, so you're gonna rationalize this thing till the wheels fall off, without even acknowledging what I'm saying, and then try to twist it like, well, if you thought that, and I'm like, well, what, so it wasn't like it was something she was saying out of left field. It was something unanimously felt. So to see him go about it the way he did to try to break her out of her feelings was what I was paying attention to. Like, okay, yeah, he's sociable, he's fun, he likes to, have fun, and you can tell he's mutable in that area. But when it comes down to owning something, he's a bit premature in that. It's not going to be so easy for him to see things that you would expect as far as a relationship. He may righteously miss your whole feelings because he's so driven on making himself superior to that point. So,
Okay.
you know,
All right. Very good. I think you brought up a lot of good points. Sean, what did you think about the meeting between the gentlemen, between Alonzo and oh, these names, they've given me the blues.
Koshia.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Koshia.
Oshia. Yeah. What did you think
Koshia.
about
I,
what did you think
I,
about what did you
I,
think
I,
about
I,
their meeting?
maybe, Well, I think the idea was, yeah, I know what he meant was sexual. I mean, even though he tried to play it, I mean, I've heard his explanation given on another platform, what have you. In no way how he tried to dress it up to skirt around it. However, I think the idea is with her, um, with some women, if they get hit on by a very attractive man, handsome man, it's flirting. But if they get hit on by a guy that's undesirable, it's sexual harassment. So I think more so if LaRon had come on had been the one to have that bubble date with Cosia, and the same conversation was had, she would not have taken it that way. I don't believe that. Why? Because
Okay.
they've already had conversation in that vein. They've already had conversation in that vein. Whereas I don't think she really is likes Alonzo. That's the reason why she got in her feelings the way she did about that line of questioning.
Hmm.
And I think
Yep.
probably that I probably think that that
Hmm.
choked and spanked that didn't come out at that moment. I think it came out a little bit earlier, and it was just a carryover into the bubble date.
Right, the elimination date, I like to call it. But
Yeah, elimination
yeah,
date. Yeah.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. I guess, that's a thought. JR, what are your thoughts about the elimination slash bubble date?
Yeah, I can see what Sean's saying with that. And if people are making jokes about being face down, arse up by by the way someone looks, like they're physical, that's the type of jokes being made, then you're setting the tone for a more light-hearted adult conversation that can lead to sexual references, and that should be cool. We've heard them speak about foot fetishes and sucking toes and things like that for all three episodes so far. There's been some
Right.
reference to those type of kinks. So to all of a sudden get prudish and get aggressive, um, about a sexual kink, that may not be for you, all you have to do is say, "No, I'm not interested in that." Again, if you want to stay on the show, there's a certain way that you have to speak
Have
to
to move.
people. Yeah, and if you're gonna go from 0 to 10 and be ready to go off on someone, again, you have to be mindful that that experience is going to go back into the men's lounge. But in this case, obviously, it happened on the elimination date. So even if it is spoken about, it's the men's. One of the men are going home next week anyway.
Right.
So I don't
But
like this throw stones, hide your hands type stuff where you can say, okay, well, do you suck toes, or do you like booty rubs, or whatever it may be. Then,
right.
like Sean said, if you're not attracted to the guy, that's one thing. If an unattractive guy says to you, yeah, or someone that may be attractive but you're not feeling, whether it's his personality or whatever else, if he says,
Right.
yeah, so do you like to be slapped or choked? You could just say neither. That's not what I'm into. Next.
Yeah. Or you could say, which one do you want me to do to you? Do you want me to choke you or do you want
Yeah,
me to slap
exactly. Flip it. Flip it.
you?
Exactly. Flip it. But again, not thinking all she thought was, I'm just gonna tear this guy up, chew him up and spit him out, right? I think Laron had more connection with the catfish he was eating than there was any connection between these two on this elimination day, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so at the end of the day, um, like Tamasha said, going into the ladies' decisions next weekend, they're gonna have Alonso to choose from and Lamar for sure because of the
Hmm.
interactions that they've had with him, and maybe even Jonathan because there's a perception that he's sneaky and he doesn't want to talk about his previous relationship, which I think is unfair for Jonathan. But the other
Mm.
two I can kind of see because they rubbed ladies up the wrong way in some way.
Yeah, Jonathan, though, I think for me as a viewer, he comes off as a little bit reserved, more reserved than I would like for him to be. But I also see him as having potential, and he warms up to who he wants to warm up to. So, and plus, he's tall and chocolatey. He ain't going nowhere. He'll be on the bridge scene. That's the way I'm calling it right now. He's not going anywhere unless he decides he wants to go somewhere. He's not going anywhere. But you're right. Alonzo, immature, giving immature vibes. I want to say something though, guys. Did we kind of completely wash over the fact that not April, I'm sorry, Koshia was not so, and she said this on the show, she was not upset with him about so much as the choked or spank comment as she was about him gaslighting her about it and pretending like it wasn't a sexual reference, which most of us as adult people know that comes from the porn industry. So, from hot and heavy time, whatever you want to call it. So, it is a sexual reference. It absolutely is. And why are we pretending? And why was he pretending that it wasn't? So, I don't, I when people pee on you and then tell you that it's rainwater, that's a little annoying.
Yeah, but again, how do you handle it? Do you fly off the temper and to get volcanic and
No.
lose your stuff over it? No, you don't, right?
Mm-mm.
If you realize that someone is peeing on your leg and telling you it's raining, or if you think that his interpretation of a sexual reference is different to yours,
Mm-hmm.
you've got to just move on and say, okay, well, we have a difference of opinion. You
Right.
think that way, I think this way. Let's move on.
Yes.
What you
And make a
shouldn't do
mental note.
is
That's what I do. I
right,
make a mental note. Like, you're
exactly,
not
and
gonna
then
be in
you
my
can
space.
automatically say, okay, well, he's eliminated for more future contention because he
There
made
you
a
go.
sexual reference that I didn't like, right?
Mm.
But you don't have to blow up, go nuts, and obviously we've seen the previews of what happens with one of the ladies, right? But
Yeah.
you can't have that temperament then be coming looking for a relationship that's going to be harmonious and loving and caring and all of that, because that side of your temper is often going to express itself if you don't get a grip on it and eradicate it from that being a part of your personality. If you're easily triggered, listen, life for all of us throws different things at us all the time, right?
Yeah.
And
So true.
if your first reaction is to get hostile and blow up every time something pisses you off, or every time something happens that you can't control, that you don't like, you're going to spend a lot of your time wasting your energy being negative and hostile.
That's
You're
a good
wasting
point.
energy. So
Coach,
you
she
have
is also not to
mm,
cut you off, but
yeah.
Jr. Coach, she is also the one earlier in this week's episode. She told us something very crucial to her development. Didn't she tell us that she was spoiled?
Yes, she did. Very spoiled.
Ah,
And again,
okay.
that's an attitude that you grow up with. If you realize that you've got pretty privilege or you're spoiled or anything like that, then that's going to affect your view of the world and the things you experience in your life. And then when you meet people who you're expecting to understand you and get you straight away, they may not, because once they see that side of your personality coming out, that might be a turnoff. Wow, she's spoiled. She's high maintenance. She's always getting her way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to chime well with me, because that means I ain't going to have no say. I'm not going to be getting my way. I'm not going to, there'll be no concessions made. It will be all her way or the highway.
No compromise, no concessions. I
Exactly.
agree. Let's get Sean to jump in here. He's been waiting for a minute. Sean, come on. What you got to add to this conversation about April? I mean, I'm sorry, Kashia.
I think the blow. I think when I was replaying it in my mind, I think I knew where the blow up began between Koshia and Alonzo with that conversation. I think that was just the icing on the cake, what we saw at that
Mm,
eliminate.
so
Because remember earlier, he said, if we have a pregnancy scare, she said, hold on, no, we're not going to
Oh,
have that.
sure did. We left it
Yeah,
out.
remember that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure
So
did. He said
I
if we
think
had a pregnancy scare. Yeah.
yeah, so I think that was his like interest to see trying to fill out, see what she was about, and if he could push that envelope, what have you. And then he just carried it further with that eliminate. You know, I think that's where it really came from because she really wasn't feeling him like that per se. Um, with with having that conversation, um, probably if she and Luron had had that conversation, like I said earlier, it'd have been a okay. She would not have blown up. She would not have of stormed out the place and said, "Take this microphone off me. I ain't had this conversation with this crazy blank, blank, blank." You know, it would have been a different dynamic.
Right. I agree. I agree. Very good point. Tasha, I'm sorry, Tamasha. What were
Well,
your thoughts about Koshia and this date? Was she right that he was gaslighting her? Did she have the right to be upset?
I think she stepped away.
Yeah. Okay. No problem. No worries. That's about it. I think that's. Oh, you did say that. Sean, you reminded us of the that we've got next episode. We've got
Yeah.
in the highlights, we've got a new guy coming in. Looks like he's tall. Looks like he's handsome from what we can see. I think we just saw the back of him, but I don't know. I was already saying, okay, he's tall, he's handsome. I like that. I like that. I like that. But we also see a highlight of Koshia going off on Alexis. Like, so this angry attitude to JR's point, JR, what do you think? I mean, like she's got the smoke for the guys and the girls.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like if you have to kind of learn to temper your emotions, if it's so easy for you to fly off the handle, it's not creating the good conditions for a relationship because you're going to go through things, and you flying off the handle on camera, you're showing this is your public face. So in private, what are you going to be like when you hit the roof over some stuff? Like how far do you take it? You know, so I don't think it's a good look at all. Once you start going down that line, then there's very little saving grace after that.
Hmm. Oh wow. Good point. Good point. Good point. Uh. Oh, okay. All right. So, JR, I'm not sure if you're stepping away for a second or if that was a few minutes ago. But we're going to wrap things up, guys. Thank you for being here, for sticking with us for this 2 hour plus edition of Ready to Love. I think we covered most of the highlights, if not all, maybe not all of the highlights, but certainly most of the really good ones. Hope to see you back next week. We'll be back here again about 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 11:30 if you're in the UK or elsewhere. Chime in and let me know. I know last week we had someone from Australia, which was a whole different thing because I think they were in their afternoon while we were in our evening. But Sean, you can catch him over on IG, and let's see if I can find that. Catch Sean over on IG. She didn't drop the link in here on this one. Okay, sorry about that, Sean. But you want to tell the people where they can find you on IG?
Sure, you can find me on IG at SANDRES1906. Once again, it's SANDRES1906. You can also find me on Facebook under my first and last name. My first name is Sean, as you see on the my emoji, whatever you want to call it, base profile. Sean, SHAUN, and my last name Stokes, STOKES. I would love to speak with you, connect with you, and maybe we can dialogue one day. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Tamasha, did you make it back, dear?
I guess not.
Tamasha, I thought I saw her mic go off mute. Okay, my eyes are playing tricks on me. All right. Okay, Tamasha, you can find her also on IG, but we're going to move on over to JR. Tell us all the places we can find you and how your platforms are different.
You can find me on Instagram at JRXTV for health, well-being, fitness related content. You can find me on YouTube basically doing relationship conversations and content like this, all the components of health and well-being and relationships. And when going right, they can definitely interact with each other in a positive way. When going wrong, any one of those cogs can spill over into other areas and affect your well-being often help make you neglect your health. And obviously, relationships are what make the world go round, right? So interactions, communication, networking, whatever you're trying to gain from the situation, it's always good to have those key facets or on the same level, right? So you'll find me on Instagram JRXTV and YouTube JRXTV for either one of those.
So same
And
name across the
thank you
platform.
to my esteemed colleagues and panelists. Aubrey, thank you for the opportunity again, and I hope everyone in the chat has a nice evening.
Well, thank you for saying, yeah. Thank
You
you
do the
so
same.
much for
Thank you.
being here. Guys, we're going to shimmy and shake on out of here on that note. And everyone have a good night. I love you for being you. And here we go. We're segueing out. Bye now.